This is the ridiculous one, Jay Smoker, and you're listening to the No Name RC podcast. Ridiculous! Woo!
Nitro is the glory. Welcome to the No Name RC podcast with your host tonight, Keenan White, aka Lefty the Great, and if you are unlucky, the Finnish village idiot, JQ. This is the RC podcast with no name but plenty of content. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some serious bench racing.
Yes, indeed, Nitro is the glory, but E-Buggy pays the bills. What's up, guys? It's your main man, Lefty the Great. And this is episode 14 of the No Name RC podcast. Our special guest this weekend will be the man himself from JConcepts Jason Ruona, a.k.a. J-Ro. We're going to talk to him about tires, bodies, wings, and everything else in between. But before we get into that, I got this intro with my buddy from Finland, 2018 Expert Nitro Buggy Champion, Maximus Mort. What's up, Max? How are you?
What's up? I'm doing good. Just chilling, enjoying the snow.
The snow, innit? What is like the temperature's got to be like just crazy, like snow nonstop. Indoor carpet RC for you. You had a race here last weekend, right?
Yeah, we had a last weekend. We have an Astro track right now indoors, and yeah, it's a pretty big facility.
Yeah. Do you get to practice there at all much, or just go out there when there are race days?
No, it's open every day from whenever. You can basically, I think it's open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day.
Okay. All right. Well, before we get on any further, I just want to throw out a couple of shout-outs to everybody. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that's listening to the podcast. It's going really awesome. Our Facebook presence is growing daily. We're going for that 2,000 likes, man. We want to give away this skateboard deck when we hit 2,000 likes on Facebook that my buddy Clint Treadway done from 454 Designs there in Texas. You like that skateboard deck, Max? It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I didn't even know about it until you posted it. It's super cool.
Yeah. Clint's a good guy. He's doing a lot of engraving and stuff down there, doing trophies and whatnot for different race series. So, we got a skateboard deck done. Also, we got the new car stands that Josh Baham done for us, 3D printed. We got some cool colors there. We're going to be doing a giveaway for those as well. So, pretty cool. We got guys here sending us some product to give away, and hey, they're enjoying the podcast as well. And thank you to all the JQ family. You know, we can't do it without you guys from around the world. You know, without you guys, we wouldn't be here. You know, period. I wouldn't be here doing a podcast if it wasn't for you guys. And shout out to Brent Densford, Beach RC, JQ Racing USA. Once again, if it wasn't for Brent, things would be so much more difficult in America. So thank you, Brent, for all the hard work you do, as well as bringing on Assault RC as one of our segment sponsors. And shout out to Jerome Chambon, Donuts RC, JQ Racing EU. Let's get cracking and growing JQ in Europe. You can get everything you need from Jerome at Donuts Racing. And, of course, Andrew Rennick at Model Tune over there in the UK, catering to all of our Irish, Scottish, and UK drivers. And I cannot say shout outs without shouting out to the Burmy crew. You know, they're going to give me flack every time I do something. Like, I made a mistake. It was so embarrassing, right? On the last podcast, I said Bermuda's 4 miles wide at its widest point. I don't know if I was nervous or I haven't been back home in so long. But Bermuda's actually 1 mile wide. I thought it was actually wider. I'm kind of embarrassed. I didn't even know how wide my own country is. But it's even smaller than I thought it was. But you know what? Bermuda's number one in one thing, and that's the most expensive place to live. So shout out to the Burmy crew. They're still racing. I'll see a bunch of those guys at PMB. And we're building a new track down here in the Dominican Republic too. It's gonna be actually Joseph and I went out to the motocross track when he was down here, and it's actually gonna be really nice. He's gonna be using the same dirt. The guy that runs the motocross track, he's got unlimited dirt, and he's gonna build this awesome track. And hey, maybe I'll get to race again once in a while. So anyway, Max, when this podcast will be released, I'll be somewhere in America driving the van with Mike Hill. I don't know. We're planning to be like, I don't know where we're going to be this time of the year. I mean, this time next week. But we're on our way to DNC. And unfortunately, you won't be coming this year.
Yeah, I got some final exams coming up in a month or so. I decided to put all my efforts towards school right now. So after that, then I can just focus on RC 100%.
Yeah, but I'm sure you'll be watching, and I'll be talking to you because Joseph will be there, but guys will be asking you questions, and we'll probably have some races going on because we've been busy every weekend helping guys. Well, mostly you and Joseph helping guys that are racing. But It's a shame that you can't come. I mean, you couldn't defend your expert championship from last year, but you would have moved up to pro this year. But yeah, it would have been good to see. We got a whole bunch of international drivers coming, a lot of Europeans coming, a couple of guys from South America, and and a couple Bermudians, and one that's crazy enough to talk on a mic all the time. And what do you think about the DNC, man? The lineup's looking good. Give me your top 3 predictions for DNC.
Top 3? Oh, that's tough.
You don't have to be in order.
If I would come, I'd be super excited. I mean, I'm super excited right now, but the facility and what Joey talked about on a podcast, it sounded all super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, always a good crew, like a JQ crew around there. So yeah, it's kind of bumming me out I can't go, but yeah. For top 3 though, that's a bit difficult. I would say Mayfield, but now it's not in Arizona. So, well, Ongaro is gonna be one.
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Yeah, Ongaro. Well, I think Ronafog's going to be in top 3. I'm going to say... this is kind of difficult. I'm going to say Ongaro, Mayfield, Ronafog.
Okay. I wouldn't go... That's pretty much what I would go with as well. It's going to be exciting nonetheless. I definitely think Boots is going to pick it up a little bit. He did well at this race 2 years ago, and he was the only one that probably had anything for Mayfield. He just kept making that mistake on that step up because he's trying to whip it and scrub it right over there. So if that Boots shows up, it's going to be difficult. And then we have a few other European guys, and of course the fast American guys, man.
I think the biggest thing this year is that the racing in the main is much more top level, I'd say, because previous years we always had like Runnerfolk and all the best Americans. Mm-hmm. Now we have on top of Runnerfolk, and last year we had Battier, so now we're gonna have Ongaro as well. Mm-hmm. And basically now this year we're gonna have all of the world's top 5, top 6.
Have you heard 7. If Berton is going?
Yeah. Didn't Joey confirm it?
Well, he said it, but I haven't seen the announcement yet. So it's gonna be a badass final.
I think he's going. I think he's going. I don't think he has school right now. Mm-hmm. I think he's doing RC full time. He went to America to sign a contract, so I'm pretty sure he would go there to race as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think Berton is going, but I'd still say like the top 3, top 5. It's still gonna be Tessman and I'm not sure about Cavalieri because he doesn't seem like he's been practicing that much lately, 8-scale wise. So
he's been practicing
Tessman, Mayfield, and those guys are gonna be there.
He's been running the e-buggy at OCRC and other tracks.
But that's not even close to what's gonna be like. It's pretty much like you'd be practicing on a carpet track for the Reed race, you know.
So and what about our unglorious, somewhat of a leader, Captain AMSOIL, Joseph Quagrain, aka the Finnish idiot, village idiot? How about him? B main?
Yeah, I think it's like 100% B main. Uh-huh. Then to bump to the A, I think it's gonna be super difficult. Last year he definitely had a shot. Like I think he would have easily bumped to the main. But this year, well, I know he's been testing some new stuff. I don't know if he's gonna run them at DNC. If he is, I think he might even have a shot. Because we've been making much progress now.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really know if he's been practicing a lot. I know he's been testing, but testing and practicing are two different things.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're between minds where we're gonna go practice before, because he doesn't even know when he's getting out there. As of this podcast, when it will be launched.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll know, because we'll be having to pick him up. So I'm guessing we're gonna go that weekend before, and I want to go to Santa Barbara to test because I like it out there. But we're looking at a few other options, so we'll see if JQ of Lasher. We did, like, people may talk about the DQ, but JQ was doing really well. Like in the last qualifier, he finished 9th. You know, he got his engines working. 6, was it 6? Yeah, the last qualifier he finished 6.
Yeah.
He was doing good in Truggy. He bumped up to the A&E buggy. I definitely think he can do well in Truggy, because he hate to admit it, he doesn't like Truggy, but he drives that thing good. It's going to be interesting, but he'll be all right. I mean, we're basically going there to have fun, have a good time. I got to make it over there first because, you know, I'm pretty worried about the gasoline budget. You know, I don't know what me and Mike Hill's going to do when we run out of fuel.
You're going to drive around the U.S. If you were in Finland, then I'd be worried, but you're in the U.S., so.
Yeah, luckily fuel prices are down, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, your up is still like half the price we have here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But enough about DNC. I'm excited because you're actually coming to America for like a month here. After you finish school, you're gonna hit up the first the really big race on the East Coast, which is PMB, and then you're gonna hang around the Carolinas, probably get down to Florida and do some testing, do some small races around there. So that should be great for you, man. Your first time really spending some time in America racing.
Yeah. I mean, I think the PNB. The race, actually, I've heard it's going to be 24-hour practice, so I might be able to get some laps down. But now I've been driving like once a month. Like the last time I drove before the race last weekend was the race a month ago. So I haven't been really driving. So going to BNB, it's going to be sort of like, if we get a good weather, maybe we get 2 days of practice before it, and then the Friday practice. So yeah.
Well, I don't. You might get some practice in North Carolina, but you got 24 hours, man. You're just gonna have to stay up and probably go out there at like 3 o'clock in the morning and do some running around. I don't know how that's gonna work, because I remember trying to wake you guys up at DNC was impossible. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, don't they have like so many drivers anyway that like the qualifying is 24 hours too, basically.
Yeah, I believe so. But you have to wait in line, and most guys wait till late in the evening, like late in the morning, to go practice. I'll be asleep. I'm not getting up that early to go smell nitro fumes. So, but it's good to have you there. Race Time Entertainment always puts on a great show. It's gonna be something you've probably never seen before. It's gonna be long days. I
like the way they're going with tracks now. Before, their tracks were just like crazy. Like they had like just killer jumps that had like no meaning other than freestyle. Like you could backflip off them.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I think they're going towards more of a like a regular track, like a track that's really drivable, so that you can drive around it. Even with big jumps, the jumps aren't like make it or break it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Dave actually hit me up yesterday. Sorry, not yesterday. He hit me up a couple of days ago, and he is bringing back the long jump rocket car competition. So basically, it's like a team puts a car. It has to be powered by rockets, and then it like goes zooming on a straightaway outside, and then takes a jump. So we're gonna enter a team in that. We're gonna take my old nitro buggy, gut it. We're going to make some badass rockets, and we're going to send it. We're going to, I don't know, make it as aerodynamic as we can, create as much lift as we can, and we're just going to, I'm going to send it. I'm going to drive it. But we're probably going to need some of your engineering and stuff like that. And we gotta have fun. That's what it's about, having fun. But yeah. Also, I wanted to say thank you, man, because you've been helping me out with the podcast. You've been doing these clips for us. It's it's a combined effort between you and me, and Joseph helps out once in a while. But I thank you for that, because those little clips actually help us boost this podcast. And it's, hey man, things are going pretty good with the podcast, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing many while I'm on the road, but maybe we'll do some Facebook Lives that will be recorded into podcasts. I don't know.
Yeah.
Depends how
Yeah,
things go.
you could do one live episode at Smoker's house or wherever you're staying.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I'd like to get, like, because Smoker's been to like almost every DNC. The Ghani's been to a bunch of them. Joseph, maybe Keith's been to a whole bunch, and whoever else. Maybe we do a Facebook Live type of podcast.
Yeah, you can even record it, so you can have it as an extra episode,
Well, man, let me let you get back to school. I'm going to get on with this podcast. The first thing we got up is the ASsaultRC.com Invisible Speed segment with Joseph and Jeffrey, the Jeff Keaton. So I'm going to let you go, man. Thanks for coming on, and let's get on to the Invisible Speed segment.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
You are now locked in to the Assault RC Invisible Speed segment. Check out AssaultRC.com for the latest products for all your performance RC needs. Featuring the best lubes and specialty tools on the market. Use promo code LEFTY19 at checkout for 10% off your entire order at AssaultRC.com.
Yeah, man. So welcome to the Invisible Speed segment, sponsored by Assault RC. We have the setup so-called guru, Joseph Quagrain. I don't know why I keep saying your name wrong. And, of course, we have Jeffrey, the Jeff Keaton. What's up, guys? How you doing?
I am doing fan-freaking-tastic. It's another day in paradise down here in sunny Florida.
How about you, Joseph?
I'm all good. Looking forward to this.
You just don't say hello. You don't say hello to Jeff, do you? You're just like,
he's a dick.
I'm here to answer questions, and that's it.
He's just here to answer my damn question. He don't have to like me. He's just got to answer my question. That's what's cool about this is he can still hate me and think I'm a dick, but at least he has to answer me. He has to respond to my question without being an ass about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lefty sold your car at the discount, and you call yourself a team driver.
I didn't get no fucking discount.
And the funny thing, you're now paying him. That's even better.
Yeah, the contingency. Yeah, that part. And then this idiot goes and posts it on Facebook.
And then
a screenshot.
And then everybody's asking me about it now. Even
it is a hot topic. It is awesome though. I gotta admit, man. I can't tell you. I got so drunk on that $100. I did nothing but shots, and it was straight Patron. Oh my god, it was so good. I'm so looking forward to the next big race, so I can just get drunk again. Like that's my goal. I don't even need to win. That's what's fucking awesome. I don't even need to win. I just need a place, and I can get drunk. Like, oh my god, goals right here. This is goals.
Wow.
All right, so the object of this segment is obviously JQ is the so-called guru of setup, and Jeffrey is going to try and stump him for questions. So what's your question and what's your topic this week, Jeff?
So this week is on a topic in which I know nothing about. I don't understand it. I'm not 100% sure why the change I made worked. But I was told to make this change, and it worked, and I don't understand it. So this time isn't so much to stump JQ as it is for him to explain why the hell this simple change worked so well.
All right. So what is it?
All right. So when we were in SIC. And my car, just for whatever reason, it just didn't roll through the corners as well as I liked. And one of the suggestions that was made by Mr. Know-It-All, the freaking God's gift to RC himself, he told me to go change the front knuckle on my car from the stock, I think it's 1 degree to, or the stock number 1 knuckles to the 0 KPI knuckles. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
And the car instantly, like I'm not going back to our previous segment a while back about invisible speed, because I don't know if I gained invisible speed or not. But my car was so much better through the corners. Like it rolled through the corners better. It felt like it was more stable all the way through the corner. And I have no idea what the hell the difference is between the two knuckles, but it worked. And it was definitely an improvement, and I don't understand why. So Mr. C-Hub, Mr. God's gift of RC, explain to me, why did this change work?
Okay. So we're talking about Kingpin Inclination. That's where the KPI comes from.
Fucking big words. Seriously.
So you take the steering knuckle on the C-Hub car. The Kingpin is the screw that attaches the steering knuckle to the C-Hub. And on most cars, if you look at the car from the front and you have 0 camber, so the wheels are completely vertical, then those Kingpin screws will be vertical also. There's no angle to them. That's the 0 KPI.
Okay.
The stock on the Black Edition, still looking from the front, the Kingpin screws are angled. So they're not vertical anymore. The wheel is still vertical, but the Kingpin screws are at an angle.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
I do.
On a pillow ball car, it's the same thing. Pillow ball car always has KPI. Because if you look at it from the front, the upper ball is further towards the inside than the lower one. And if you draw a line through both of those balls, you will see that it's angled. So with a vertical wheel, the Kingpin is angled on the pillow ball cars. So on the pillow ball cars, you can't really adjust this as much as on the C-Hub cars, because you can't go to 0, because you would mess up your roll centers and camber change, and you don't want to do that. So I'll now talk about the change you did and the 2 options we have on the Black Edition. So what the angle does is, as the wheel turns, it changes the camber of the tire. You could do this. To demonstrate this, you can do it with a steering knuckle. So you take a steering knuckle, just the part, and you put a hex screwdriver through it, and then you just hold it vertically, and you turn the knuckle, and you can see that the angle of the knuckle doesn't change, the camber doesn't change. Then you angle the tool that you put through the steering knuckle, and then you turn the steering knuckle, and you will see how as you turn it, for example, 90 degrees, you'll see that it's now at a different angle. So as the wheel turns, the camber changes differently between the 0 KPI and the knuckle that has an angle to it. So that's actually what's physically changing on the car. There's also this term scrub radius, which we don't need to get into. That's also another theoretical thing that changes on the car. But the more relevant thing to know is that the Kingpin angle changes the camber of the front tire as it turns. That's why the steering feel is different. And
so what happens if you increase it? So if we went to 0s, what happens if don't you make another one that's like higher?
Yeah, I'm testing different ones. It's kind of a difficult thing to test, because you have to try it on all kinds of different tracks and conditions, and it takes time. So when I figure out when I figure out the angles that work, then I'll probably release more knuckles. And also, because the angle is quite small on our steering knuckle, we use the same C-hub. In a perfect world, you would change the C-hub also to incorporate that angle. So we actually use the same C-hub. It's a bit of a compromise.
Okay. Well, I know like some people run like the 20 degrees, and of course I tried the 20 degree, but I didn't like it. So I'm still on the 18. So.
Okay. So anyway, what does it do? So I think that the zero KPI is the easiest to drive in most conditions. The reason why you felt that it was an improvement is that what the zero KPI does is when you go into a corner, the car has slightly more steering, but then in the corner, it will push a bit. So in your situation, your problem was you were going into the corner, and then in the corner, your car would spin out or not keep the same round line that you wanted. So you were fighting the car a bit to get through the corner, correct?
Yes.
So when you went to the zero KPI, it helped because you went into the corner and then the steering was very neutral. So it didn't want to oversteer anymore or you didn't want to lose the rear anymore. So it was easier for you to get through the corner because the zero KPI will push a bit once the car is in the corner.
Yeah, it felt more predictable. Like it felt like I felt like my car was going to exit where I wanted it to instead.
Yeah. So whenever you have a situation where you have trouble in sweepers, for example, because the car wants to oversteer or just have inconsistent steering, if you are running KPI, then reducing it will help. And that's what happened with you. So then someone might say, okay, well, why wouldn't you just always run the zero KPI? Well, the thing is that there are two situations where running KPI improves the handling a lot. So one is, let's say, a high grip track or a track which is very edgy and your car is very aggressive. So around neutral, it's very nervous. So you can barely touch the steering wheel. So in these situations, if you add some KPI, it will smooth out the steering a lot. So the initial steering is much less. So on a high grip or edgy track where your car feels nervous, you can add some KPI and it will smooth out the initial steering. But then you have to remember that it's initially easier to drive, but then in the corner it could get hard to drive, like I explained before.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I went to Vietnam, the track was very smooth and the traction was very consistent. And my car wasn't really nervous, so I didn't feel like I needed to add KPI to smooth it out or anything like that. But this is now the second situation where adding KPI is a good thing. So my car felt good, but I was a bit slow in the longer, rounder corners. And I felt like I needed a bit more steering and I needed the car to sort of pull around the corners more. I wanted to get on the gas and just like whip the car around the corner faster.
Right.
And I did that by adding KPI. So I added KPI to get more steering mid to exit of the corner. And there was no risk of me losing the rear end or anything like that. So it was a very good change to make. It just made the car have more steering through those long corners. Right. And I could drive the track more on power. So I was faster.
So all right. So now I got the stump question now. And I'm gonna win this one. I know it. I got it.
Okay.
So Mr. Know-It-All, what the hell does KPI stand for?
What do you mean?
He said it.
I said it in the beginning. Kingpin Inclination.
Oh, I missed that part. I tuned you out.
You stumped yourself. Anyway.
Hey, Joseph,
Fuck.
do other C-Hub cars have this option just for other viewers who aren't driving a JQ car?
Yeah, so that HB car has this option. The Kyosho doesn't, I think. They have had different versions of the MP, whatever, 777 and 7 and 7.5. They've had versions that had KPI, and then now they don't. I think with the MP9 they got rid of it.
Okay.
So I don't think they can change
All right.
between the two.
Awesome.
And this is the KPI, I think, is the reason for the sort of pillow ball car handling. So we all know how we feel that the steering on and off power is different on the pillow ball cars, and you have to drive pillow ball cars more on power to be fast. So that's because of the KPI angle.
So
Because they have quite a lot of it.
All right. So, Jeff, does that answer all your questions about zero KPI? And you stumped yourself in the process. That was pretty funny.
I feel more educated now.
But how about stumping yourself? That was funny.
I know, right? I totally missed that one. I guess I should actually pay attention when he fucking talks.
He drones on so much. It's hard. I know.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard to explain. But I can conclude like this because I actually wrote about this on Patreon, on my Patreon page. So the zero KPI, you should run that when you want the car to feel like it has more rear grip. So due to the steering being more numb mid to exit of corners, the car will feel more stable, like it has more rear traction.
Okay.
And then you should run the KPI number 1 when your car is too aggressive or nervous going into corners. So mainly on high grip tracks. And you should also run it when you need more corner speed and steering throughout corners, but you have no issues with a loose rear end. So that's kind of how I would do it.
Okay. So
sounds legit.
Is that science mode over, Joseph? Are you out of science mode now?
Yeah, it takes a while for me to recover.
Yeah, it does.
To normality.
Well, in this particular case, I'm glad he did go because it does explain what the difference is.
Yeah. All right. So you explained KPI. Jeff stumped himself, and this brings us to the end of the Invisible Speed segment, brought to you by AssaultRC.com. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, no worries.
No problem. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, this is Salty Joe from Bermuda, and you're listening to the No Name RC podcast with Lefty the Great and that village idiot JQ.
So hey guys, now we got the man from JConcepts himself, Jason Ruona. J-Ro, what's up? How are you, man?
Doing well over here. How are you doing?
I'm cool. I'm just chilling. It's pretty hot here in the DR. It's been a hot winter for us. It's almost like Florida.
So, okay, so that was one of my questions I had is where you were at.
Yeah, I'm about 2 hours away from Miami, south. Yeah, in the Dominican Republic. It's like 80 degrees right now. It's supposed to be like 75 and nice.
Yeah, that's here. It's like in the 70s in Florida, so we're loving it right now.
Oh yeah. At least it wasn't like it was for the Nationals, man. The Nationals was unbearable for me, and I'm used to hot temperatures, but that was rough.
That is very rough, and I don't know if you'll go. I would assume you'd probably go to the Fuel Nationals this year, and in Texas, and that is always a pretty toasty one.
Is it really humid there like it was in Florida?
Yeah, it is.
Oh boy. Oh great.
And I want to say, like, for some reason, when we did that race in Florida this year, it was actually, I remember everyone thought it was brutal hot, but it really wasn't as bad as it could have been for some reason.
It was humid though. It was like 100, almost 95% humidity or something like that.
Yeah, it was. That's how it is.
I just remember, like, when I used to go to the lake and do my thing, like, because the porta potties were too far away, I was just worried if an alligator or a boa will come out and attack me, like, every time I went there.
Yeah, that is a lot of people say that about Florida. Some of my friends, like Scott Hughes, from the old days, and guys like that, when they come visit me, they just think there's alligators everywhere, and they're always like, well, what if we see an alligator?
Hey, I say Florida is the Australia of America. It's got everything that can kill you there. But I didn't see no gators though. I've been there many times. I still haven't seen any gators, any wild ones anyway.
Right. You could go to Gatorland over in Kissimmee. You can just see they got like a whole, like a little,
Yeah.
It's like a farm for them.
All right. But thank you for coming on to the podcast. I'm actually a really big fan of your podcast with Gotti Jr., the Radio Impound podcast. That was the first podcast I ever listened to, and I've been hooked on them ever since. And I listen to you guys when I get a chance. I know you guys on like 190 episodes. You've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know how many. I want to say right after the 2012 Roar Nationals. The first one I did with them was 2012, I believe. And we've been doing them on and off since. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the ears really pack up. And I know that, obviously we've talked about trying to get to 200 episodes. So I think that's what's going to happen this year. We'll finally get to 200 episodes. And yeah, like you talked about before, it's for fun.
Yeah.
And, I think what we found over time is people like listening while they're working or doing something else. It's something that they can do that isn't super distractive. They can get their work done in anything they're doing. Or if you're RCing, as some people say, and you're wrenching, you can listen to it. It kind of keeps you in the zone or in the mood, I guess. And so anyway, yeah, it's fun. And I don't know how long I'll do it, or I never really, but I haven't gotten tired of doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy, now that I don't even really race anymore, I definitely enjoy talking about RC. So it's something that I do enjoy doing these podcasts, and yeah, I'm nobody, but I like to talk about it, man. I just love RC altogether. So, and just if you guys, obviously people know who you are. You're Jason Ruona. You're JConcepts Tires, Accessories. I had a chance to take a tour of the factory there in Florida about a year and a half ago, end of 2017. It's a really, like, I was impressed. Like, I didn't realize you had that many people working for you. It's all, everybody seems happy. Everybody that that I talk to, you got AJ there, you got those guys working there hard. I think it's a great setup, man. I was shocked when I got there how you did a lot of things in house there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a long road. We've been doing this 15 years. We're in our 16th year now, and it's obviously never easy. There's more competition all the time. There is, those new great ideas out there, and you have to work against those items and try to do better. And we're in a racing market. It's very competitive. Mm-hmm. We do make things that are outside of the general scope of racing, but they're all competition based. Mm-hmm. So there is performance involved in everything, and anytime you add performance or racing, it becomes a lot of work and passion, and then subjectiveness, I guess you could say. So, it's definitely not an easy thing to be in. Mm-hmm. in RC, but so far I still like doing it every day. It really RC, it's pretty much the only thing that I've ever done since I was a kid is RC. And I did a lot of my parents or my dad's the family business was construction. Mm-hmm. Residential and commercial, so I have a lot of construction experience from those days. But for me, it's either construction or RC.
Yeah, well, I think you made the right choice. That's for sure. Because just going briefly into your history, you actually was a racer, and I'm mm-hmm. guessing when you told us you was like a professional racer, you was doing that for a living, or working as well as racing when you was at your peak?
I think at my peak, I was going to school and racing. So I would say that I was probably a professional racer. But it was a little different then because you didn't make really there wasn't the kind of money in it then as there really is now for a top of the line driver. I wouldn't consider myself ever the top of the line, but you know, I would have to pick somebody to maybe compare with of today, what my level I think would have been at. But I think I was a professional driver for sure because I got paid to race, but it was never an amount of money that you could live off of. So yeah, for me, I think my peak probably was in the mid to late 90s was probably when I was the most focused and the most determined, I would say. I still race today, and I still do pretty well on the tracks that I race at that are most familiar to me, I guess we would say. But but I'd say the mid to late 90s was probably when I was at my... What was
your best performance in that time?
Well, I finished second at the Roar Nationals behind Kinwald a couple times. Kinwald won the two-wheel drive class. I believe it was the 95 Roar Nationals, and I got second there. He also won the mod truck class that same year. I got third, and then the year after that, he won four-wheel drive. I got second. And then the year after that, he won the modified truck class at another Nationals, and I got second. So I have a lot of seconds. Greg Degani likes to give me a lot of...
he's so savage.
He tries to give me a lot of crap about getting a lot of seconds, but yeah, I have gotten a lot of seconds over time. And of course, racing in my own area here in Florida, I've always done very well. A lot more firsts than seconds, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then on the world level, I was in the A main at the Worlds 3 times in two-wheel drive. And I think over everything, I guess when you kind of look back, those are probably some of my best results, was just making the top 10 in the world in probably the most difficult class.
Yep.
To make the top 10, because it's 10 and that's it, and today we run these races where there's 17 in the main, 18 in the main, these big 8-scale races. And, to be honest, people say, oh, I made the A main. It's like, but, there's 17 or 18 guys in the main. So it's like,
yeah,
they have 5 people podiums and 17 and 18 guys in the main, which I understand. Yes. The tracks are huge. You can do that. But when you're only going for 10 and you're at the Worlds, it's very tough to make 10. That's for sure.
Yeah, they still do 10 at the Worlds now? I believe so, right?
For electric, yeah.
Okay. Do you think that would ever change? You think they'll ever go up to maybe 15, maybe even longer races?
I don't know. I'm not sure what IFMAR sees as what they're capable of doing. I think the issue isn't so much that the cars can't go longer races, but the time during the weekend.
Right. Gotcha.
So I think that's why we can't do it at a lot of our races because, like for instance, we do these different events, Super Cups, whatever, and sure, it'd be nice to run longer races. I mean, you can run practice runs for 20 minutes with the equipment we have today with a modified car, but it's just the amount of time we have in a day. We can't give a 20-minute main to one class and still finish,
Gotcha.
So we would have to restructure some things, different amount of days. And then entries. It's like, it's not quite the same as 8-scale, the pit stops, I think, is what makes 8-scale the longer races really work. because you get a kind of a break in the action. There's something going on. Electric, a 20-minute straight electric race, it would probably only be good for, only half of that amount of time, because ultimately maybe breakage is a little easier, tire wear is usually more. You'd have to kind of restructure the way it's the whole thing's almost assembled, to make it a little bit, I think, more complete. But,
yeah. I get that, because, people rebuilding diffs after every run, and that's just 5 minutes. I get all of that. So let's transition here. You went from being a pro racer to deciding to get into the industry, and you started out with your four-wheel drive buggy. I believe it was called the BJ4.
Yep, we had the BJ4 and the BJ4 Worlds Edition.
Okay, and that was based off of a touring car, I believe?
What it was is Associated had a car called the TC3, and there was another vehicle out there using some TC3 drivetrain components. And essentially what we ended up doing was designing the car around the TC3 drivetrain and the B4 suspension, which, I think sometimes people, get a little confused that it was a conversion, but, we sold it as a full kit. It was just as much of a kit as any car you can really get today that's a race car. It had everything in it. We bought all the parts from Associated that were needed, and anything that needed to be modified, we would modify the parts, put them into the kit, and of course we had our own, a huge list of our own parts that made it all work. So it was a full kit, and we did everything from packaging it to, from designing it, racing it, packaging it, selling it, dropping it off to ship. So
yeah.
It was A to Z. We made, I made the instruction manual. So yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty successful as well.
Very successful.
Yep.
It was interesting because we started, just as sort of an idea that the Worlds was going to be in Clearwater, Florida, which is only about 2 hours from me. The partner I had on the project, Brad, was a racer, and he wanted to race in the Worlds because it was local for him, and but he didn't want to race any of the four-wheel drives that were out there. And he said, "Hey, I want to make my own car." I'm like, I can get in on this. I don't really have a four-wheel drive. In the past, I always ran a Yokomo, but in this situation, I wasn't really set up to run the Yokomo. So I'm like, yeah, I'm in on that. We can work on this. And, we knocked out a design, got some parts made, which back then was much more difficult than it is today. And we got it done, and we built it. And the first time it ever hit the dirt was the first control practice. So, I ran it up and down the street at like 1 a.m. and then brought it to the Worlds and ran it. Ran it in the first controlled practice session, and it worked really well.
Yeah. How long how did it make out in that first Worlds race?
I qualified 12th, so I believe I qualified 12th, and maybe I got 13th when it was all said and done. Maybe I got 3rd in the B main or something like that. So it actually went extremely well. What I remember lacking at the time was a little bit extra steering, and I wanted to use a one-way in the front, but I didn't have the ability to get one during qualifying, and I felt like that held the speed back a little bit. And maybe just overall the expectation, had I thought about it at all a little bit differently, maybe I would have pushed even harder to make the main. It's kind of difficult to say what that really means, but I felt like, in a sense, like I was driving something. It was kind of for fun, and
You wasn't
I don't know
serious
that
about it.
I didn't know that I was in complete race mode to
Right.
make the main with this car until I realized that it was a possibility. And then when a few good runs, I had maybe a top 10 or two, and I was like, wow, this could be in the main. And then I started really realizing that it's like, all right, because I'm still running the setup that I did on the workbench, and so the expectation going in wasn't maybe high enough.
Right. I get that.
So yeah, but yeah. Anyway, good car. Didn't intend on selling it, but we got a lot of people asking. We started selling that car. Took a while to get that done. Got that done. Then we got involved with several of the top name drivers. Cavallari at that time was just making his switch from Losi to Team Associated. Team Associated didn't have a four-wheel drive car, and I was at the Cactus Classic, and Cavallari at the time, who was, people call him Pudge, and this was the time when he was more Pudge than he is now. And I just remember him coming up like, hey, I need a four-wheel, I'm going to start running Associated in April. And so I'm like, all right, we can make that happen. So, he started running the car. Mayfield was running the car even before that. We had Jared Tebow at the time. So we had the three. It could be the three best drivers of all time.
Yeah.
When things are all said and done at that particular time, we had those three guys racing the car because they were all Associated drivers, and Associated didn't have a four-wheel drive. So, so we had a really good, successful run with the car. I believe we won. As far as I can remember, there wasn't a race that we did not win with the car in one of the versions or the other. We even won the Euros. So we won the Worlds, the European Championships. We won the Roar Nationals, the Hot Rod Shootouts. We run, the CRC. Pretty much anything there was, the car won because, we had these guys that were so good. And then on a regional level, we had great drivers, like myself and JR Mitch and these other guys that were very good on that level also. So we had some great times with that car and that platform.
And how long did that last? How many years did you deal with the car and selling it and whatnot?
I think we started selling at the beginning of 2004. Rod Rippey was a driver that we still have a relationship with in Missouri. He won a stock nationals with it. We shipped out our first 10 kits. He got one of them. We didn't know who he was at the time, but he won a stock nationals with it right away. So that was 2004. We went through 2005 and 2006. And by the time the Worlds came around in 2007, we had made an agreement with Associated that they would buy the design of the car from us and transition to the B44, which is what the name of their car was. But part of that deal was we had to essentially design the B44 based off of our car. So we made this agreement with them, and they purchased the design, but the work just started because then we had to design the car as a full production car. Mm-hmm. So I worked on that with some of their designers and finished that up, and then that car won the 2007 Worlds in Japan. Jared Tebow, that was his first Worlds. Awesome. Win was with the B44. So then we transitioned out of the car thing. So
why did you get out of the car side of the industry and decide to focus on the accessories and tires? Because what was the ultimate decision to not do that?
Well, I think it's because in our side of things at the time, we were more of a 10 scale based company, and in order to be 10 scale based, at the time, especially at that time, you needed to have a 2-wheel drive, a 4-wheel drive, and you needed to have a truck. And for us to get going in that business, it would have just, first of all, we would have went into direct competition with Associated, which we did not want to do, because I felt like, we kind of had a partnership going there with that car. We worked together on the car. They bought the design from us. And I think for us to turn right around and try to start in the car business would have been very difficult, probably more so from a monetary standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Just the money that it would take to build a full production-based 1/10 off-road buggy. And then, of course, you would need the 2-wheel and the 4-wheel.
And a
then
truck.
People would say, hey, we need the truck. So to do something basically that was everything was happening in my house at the time, and to try to transition that into a major car manufacturer was a little too big of an undertaking.
Yeah, man. People don't realize how much molds and all that stuff cost as well. So that's like, we get the same question for us with JQ Racing. Oh, when is the Truggy going to come out? Well, Truggy's not that easy to just do. It's, you need longer arms. You need this. You need that. It's not just, it's a little bit difficult, but that's how it goes, man.
Yeah, and it's one thing if you're during a time period where Truggy is growing or the most popular class, and you have to be in it. And that's currently not exactly the situation.
I would agree.
So it's kind of a big race class, and although I love the way Truggies look, when we have a big race and the guys are running them, I think it's an awesome class. But in general, people, they race buggies. And then the Truggies, that third, well, it used to be that second class, but now it's almost like that third class. Yeah. And it's difficult to say, all right, well, you have to say how many of these are we going to sell, right?
Yep, I agree with you. I like Truggy too, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
All right, so you said, okay, no more cars, and then you said, let's transition to accessories and tires.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was the right decision, but what made you get into the tire part of it?
Well, that's my main interest, I think. The things that I enjoy the most in RC have always been the way the cars look and then tires. So for me, the bodies and the tires is really more of the thing that I like personally. The car stuff, sure, everything comes down to the car. But for whatever reason, those are the things that I like and enjoy the most are tires, wheels, and bodies. Those are my favorite items on the car. Some people are engine guys or motor guys. They just can't get enough of engines and motors, and some guys can't get enough of batteries or fuel, or everybody has kind of their thing. And for me, my thing was the bodies and the tires. Going back to when, whatever you want to call it, when I was a pro racer or being coming up in RC, tires was always the big tuning thing for me. Did a lot of experimenting on my own. And then at the time, Kinwald was from the same generation. He was a big tire guy. And Masami was always a big tire guy. So I always felt like these guys that were at the top of the game were very good with their tires. I watched a lot of what they did and tried to learn from them. And then some of my own things over time, just, and that was the area that really, to me, stood out as the area that really made the biggest difference in racing. And, everyone's in love with the cars and the chassis, but none of these cars will really run very well without the proper tires. Exactly. And to me, a lot of credit has to go to those items that make a good car because it is a huge part of the setup.
Yep.
And it's always been that way, and I don't know that it will ever change.
Oh, of course not.
And so that's why I really enjoy that side of it. And I learned a lot in the 90s with tires, and it all applies today. Everything still holds true. We race on very similar conditions. Only recently, we've done a lot more carpet and AstroTurf. That's a little bit different. But in terms of a lot of these things, we were running one-run tires in 1994, 1993. We were saucing tires in 1994. We were gluing inserts in the 90s. We were all these things and all these tricks you've ever heard of were all being done in the 90s. And they still all apply today, maybe a different way or a different time, but it's definitely something that's been there and always interesting, I guess, to me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because we're going to get onto a tire talk section of this, but I believe you told me that tires wasn't even the first product that you guys actually made as JConcepts. What was it?
Yeah, the first was that BJ4 car and then a body.
Right.
So we made because we were running this Worlds, and I wanted to have my own body because I felt like in the 90s, it was, and especially the early 90s, the Worlds was always that place where you would debut something or be different and show something that you might have coming out. And for me, that was the opportunity that was exciting for me to say, hey, I don't know if I'm ever going to sell any of this stuff, but I just think it's cool because it's the Worlds to have something that nobody else does. And so we worked on this body for the B4, and that was one of the races I made the A main in. And so it was fun to make that body. But yeah, so the bodies and then that car was really the first thing, and then a few accessories.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely working out for you, dude. That's for sure. And I remember you telling me that you even had Mayfield on the signed and whatnot, and you didn't even have tires for him at that time.
Yeah, when we started with Ryan, he was running the four-wheel drive buggy. He was running the bodies, and it got to the point where he was getting into his pro RC career. And, he obviously wasn't in a situation where he was going to start buying tires to race with. He had a couple options out there. Companies that had already been sponsored by or something. And I just told him, I said, hey, the plan here is to have some tires. And, what we'll do is I'll buy everything that you need to run in the meantime. And just, when we get our stuff going, then you can transition into using ours. And he was fine with that. And so, yeah, that was about, that was in the early 2000s. And yeah, he's been running for us ever since.
Oh yeah. I think he's going to have a permanent job whenever he decides to stop racing anyway and work for JConcepts directly.
He has a lot of options if he wants. I think, and sometimes he thinks about it, sometimes he doesn't. But, as long as he can still race at the level he races at, I encourage him to race because, it's something, it's hard to make that kind of money that a few of those guys make by being a driver. And he's one of the guys that can do it. And when he can still be one of the best, then you got to do it as long as he can.
I agree with you there.
So he's one of the rare guys that's able to get it done in multiple classes, and he doesn't really have any fade in his, I don't know how, there doesn't seem to be any fade in his game. And he's still racing strong. So
awesome. We'll touch back on that because I'm going to ask you about drivers later on. But let's talk about tires. Now, this is a question that I have is what is more important with performance? Do you go for tread or compound? Do you pick a worse tread for the right compound or better tread for the wrong compound? What's your opinion on that?
I think that no matter what, you need to be on the right compound, especially if we're talking 8 scale. There's kind of a lot of crossover with a lot of these tread patterns, and there are a lot of different tread patterns for various reasons. But if you're on the right compound, you can do a lot of work with that. And that's the most important thing. And then I think you pick the tread second. And then when it becomes more critical, you have to be on the right tread and compound. But when you don't know what to do, if you're in the right range of compound, I think you can perform pretty well.
Yeah. How do you pick your compounds usually?
I do it by the way the track looks. I go up and look at the track, and I can usually get between, in my opinion, between 2 different compounds, and then you kind of check the temperature as a feel at first, and then I go from there. So for me, when I get to a track, I basically go up and look at it, and from there I can say, all right, is this a fresh track? Is this a driven track? Is it wet? Is it dry? What phase are we in? And then I kind of pick based off of that. And then once you get that first run in, then you can determine how close you were and then what side or the other you have to be on. And again, it's a little less critical in 8 scale, I would say, than 10 scale. 8 scale, you can kind of be on a little wider window of tire, and you can get around, you can be quick. In 10 scale, you have to be... your tire selection almost has to be perfect.
Yeah.
If you're racing somebody that has it right.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Do you, if you're on the same, you mentioned temperature, so I'm guessing temperature is one of your bigger factors in compound. If you have the same track condition, do you, cold or warmer temperature, would you go up or down in compound?
Well, what usually happens is you look at the surface, you see how abrasive it is. If you're seeing that guys are mowing through tires and wearing tires, usually the track is very abrasive. And then that usually says that you can run a harder tire or longer wear type tire, which usually means it's faster. Sometimes people think that harder tires last longer, but that's not necessarily true. Usually on some of these tracks, the harder tires are actually faster, and they'll sometimes wear more, but you're getting more speed at the same time. That's where the long wear comes in. I know that's one of your questions as well, and we can hit that later. But to me, the temperature the abrasiveness is the first situation. You can see that right away, and then the temperature. And if it's getting really warm or really hot, that's just another signal that you need to be on a harder or longer wear tire. Because, especially in 8 scale, when the races are longer and the cars are beating down on the tires and the inserts, and everything's getting hot and more flexible as you run, you have to start off being harder to begin with.
Yeah, of course. And then you have to, it depends on the length of mane and whatnot like that. I think a master of that seems to be Battier. He seems to always set his car up for the last part of the mane. It seems like that.
Yeah, what I see with him is he doesn't seem to carry over round to round how he feels about the entire race. So there's a lot of drivers that start to they need to perform well early to give them the confidence to perform late. And I don't see that with Robert. What I see with him is I see that he wants to run well, but he never counts himself out until it's over with. And I think that goes in hand with his selection of his equipment and his tires, where he sets up for the long haul. So I think his mindset is, I'm always one of the better guys, and if I get everything right for the long main, I'm going to be the one at the advantage. And I think that's a very good strategy from his standpoint. You know, a lot of guys that I work with, they don't like being off at all. Mm-hmm. And they want to be one of the favorites the entire time. And I think that's something that Mayfield's gotten better at as he's gotten older, is he realizes that it's a long event and you can start off fast or you can end fast. Yeah. You know, like it's hard to be the man the entire event and stay up with that. And I think an example of that was one of the worlds we ran in Thailand with Tebow, where God, he spent the whole time we were there being the favorite, and you know he's, you know, it's every couple minutes he's taking new photos and, you know, new videos, and that was when probably the Neo buggies and the websites were at their highest popularity. And I mean, he just spent the whole time we were there being the favorite, and by the main he didn't win. Mm-hmm. And I think that it just kind of wore on him. He wasn't able to perform as well as he probably should have. I know he said he made a mistake on a tire selection, and it was by accident. He chose the wrong compound by accident that they put on the car, and I just kind of felt like that wore him down. You know, being
a lot of pressure.
You know, it seemed like he had to go out and beat himself every single time, and, you know, take all the same photos and do all the same videos and just be the man over and over again. And it was just like, you know, it was really like they were using him, I felt like. Mm-hmm. Like they were using him, you know, like he was on this roll and they were, you know, making him, he was, you know, made out to be this badass, which he was. And it didn't allow him to really come back to center and then kind of concentrate probably the way he would have liked to later on. And so I think that's the lessons these guys learn over time, is to stay a little more even, concentrate on those longer races. Yep. And be there in the end. As long as you're, you know, top 3, top 5 fast, your lap times are close, that's where you need to be, and then you can peak when the time is right, and then you have a chance to win.
Exactly. It's not the first it's not the first the person that wins is not the first that leads the race. It's the first person that comes across the finish line at the end of the race.
Yeah, so, you know, that's it. And I think it's you know, that's a big part of the strategy in 8-scale racing, and I think that's something that Robert is really good at based off of what I've seen.
Yep. Okay, so my next question is about regular and long wear compounds. Other than wear rate, what is the difference between them?
Well, just they are the formula of the material is different. Mm-hmm. You know, so we do have differences in the materials based off of how they're made. So, you know, it's like if you were to, you know, I don't know what to compare it to, like you're baking something, you know, and you got a recipe for your brownies or your recipe for whatever it is. They're completely, you know, they're different recipes, and they have, so the rubber is actually different and has a different strength. And, you know, this particular one, the rubber strength is a little more durability.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we've talked about compounds. Now with so with the long wear, obviously, does that equate to temperature as well? Would you be changing that towards temperature, or just basically for longer mains and whatnot like that?
No, like what we end up with is, you know, with the long wear stuff is usually, you know, you can get on a harder compound of the long wear. Mm-hmm. You know, for instance, like at the Worlds, we were all the way at our hardest end of the long wear tires. Cavallari ran I believe our hardest tire, our hardest production tire we have, which is called Y2. I believe he ran those in the A final there. And you know, Mayfield was experimenting running a new compound we have called Aqua. But Cavallari had chosen the Y2s, and that was the hardest that we brought with us, or at least that we shipped. I think I might have brought one harder in my personal stuff in case, but and that was just with the track maturing. It just keeps going further and further, and he didn't come off saying that he thought he ran too hard a tire, or so. A lot of these things really do come into play.
I agree. So let's move on to picking out the right tread. What do you look for when you're looking for tread at a track?
Yeah, it's kind of like the same thing as we talked about earlier, when I'll just walk up to the track and look at it and just kind of assess where it's at. Are we in the beginning stages of a brand new track, or are we on a broken in track, or are we on a broken down track? And I think that's where you can also decide the tread. So for me, when I walk up, like say for the weekend, we were down at Coral Springs, we were running our Super Cup there, and we get there and the track, it had rained. So it was wet and it was pretty fresh. And for us, that means we have to run a small pin tire on our two-wheel buggies, which is like the double Ds. Because if you try to run, that has the pin separation, it has the flexibility, the softest compounds, has the most amount of, or a good amount of spread between the pins that allows you to kind of get some grip out of what's available on the track.
Right.
And it's the same thing for 8 scale. So if we walk up and see that condition, we're going to be like, all right, we're going to run triple Ds or reflexes because the track is wet. We need some pin separation, but we still need tiny pins because we don't want to be in a situation where we're traction rolling because of the wet dirt. And a lot of guys, you'll run small pins because of that. So you want small pins with some separation in the softer compound, and that gets you going. So that's when you walk up and see the track. If you walk up and say, all right, well, this track's been in a little bit, it's dry now, there's cars have been on it, you can see like a groove forming, then you're like, all right, now we're going to start looking towards a tire that's a little bigger, lug, maybe a little harder. So if you're on 8 scale, you're thinking, I need to go to a blue here, something that's soft. And track has a little bit of a groove, but you can still see the dust. It's not really that hot out yet, but the track has been run and it's kind of mature. So you're thinking, all right, I'm going to go to a blue compound here. I'm going to run. I still could probably stick with like the reflex style tire because that's a little versatile. Just go with blues. You run, feels good. You come back up, different part of the day. Now the track's really starting to come in. Lots of cars have been running. The track looks a little warmer. And you see that groove is a little bit darker, then you're thinking, okay, now I think I could go to an R2. It's the tire needs to be a little harder now. The track's faster, so that means that the fast guys are going to go really fast, and the average drivers will be faster, but they're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Right.
And so what you have to do is also look at what kind of a driver you are. It's like, hey, I need to get the most out of what I can get here. I think I can run a pretty good error-free run. I'm going to run an R2 tire. I'm going to stick to my guns and run clean and see what I can do, And I think that's what you do there. Then if you start seeing the track is it's starting to break up now. You went through the groove section. You went through the groove process. Now the track's starting to break up. You're getting holes, more dust. You're going, okay, now I'm kind of on the smaller pin tires. You're going to start going to a larger pin tire because there's more dust to be concerned about. It seems like the larger pin tires give you more drive in the dustier or the broken conditions. The larger pin tires are better. So you start to look at that, and you start to go up on pin size, and then you can look at the orientation of the pins and that type of thing later. But in general, you just like, I need to take a step up in pin size here, track's broken, it's a little dusty, and you start to make that adjustment. In the compound, you might stay close to the same. If the track gets too broken, you need to go back on your compound to a little softer one, because now you start to lose grip. You go to that, so you start off with if you're on an outdoor track, we're saying you start off, track's fresh, you're on green tires, the track is smooth, starts to groove in. Now you're going to a blue compound, small pin. You start to see the track groove up even more. Now you're going to a harder tire, same type of tread. Then you start to see it breaking apart, and you start to say, okay, now we got to go to a larger pin. Then the traction starts to feel less because the track's breaking up more. Then you have to go back and compound again a little softer to regain some more traction in the dust. And then usually by then you're kind of getting closer to the mains, where you have to start to consider the length of the race you're going to run.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, all right, I'm going to run a 20-minute race, 30-minute race, 45 minutes. And then you can adjust, all right, do I need less pin separation, which helps my wear? Or can I stay where I'm at and finish the race because I like where I'm at? So then that's that call you have to make at the end, depending on how long your race is. But that's kind of generally how we select the tread. And then that's more of an 8-scale way of doing it, because I'd say we're right now talking a little more 8-scale.
Yeah, Nitro's the glory around her on this podcast. So.
I know. That's fine. I love Nitro. I mean, I get so excited when you start a big qualifier at these Nitro races. Like, I always find myself getting I don't know, it's like kind of pumped up.
Yeah, man, Nitro is awesome. I mean, I love anything RC, but Nitro for me is definitely a glory. I guess my next question would be, how do you come up with these designs for these different treads? Is there a science to it? Like, do you say how many pins need to go here, how many rows, size of pins, etc.?
To me, it's there is some science to it, but in general, the way I kind of look at it is still more of a feel. When I work on these tire projects, to me, I kind of know the direction I want to go in my mind, or what type of condition it's going to be. Like, for instance, if we're designing a tire, like I guess we go back to the Worlds was in Italy, and I heard that we were going to have a track that was going to be on. They were saying it was concrete,
right?
And I said, okay, so I'm thinking over what we have now for tires, and what our treads have, what our compounds have, and I was like, I think I'm going to start leaning towards a tire that has a very tight pin separation, but we're still going to need some depth to the tread, just to give us some wear rate, just some length of time, and then and when the track's usually, if you're thinking concrete, it's going to have a lot of traction. I wasn't as concerned about the design of the pins as much as I was about the separation and the drivability. I felt like the drivability was going to be the number one thing, and then 2 was going to be the wear. So when I worked on this tire called the Diamond Bars for that track, I felt like I kind of picture how the driver is going to drive the track, and then I think about how the tire really kind of needs to work with the way you're going to drive it. So to me, it's like, for instance, you visualize this guy driving his 8-scale with the track has a lot of grip, what he's going to have to do with the car, and jump landings are always a concern, and how, so you want to make this tire that kind of soft on the edges, rolls off, not too grabby, but then the height of the whole thing is critical because you still want that transitional speed. So for me, I'm thinking about all these things when I'm working on the tire. or whatever it is. So I start to take all those things into consideration. The surface for sure. The temperature is more of a compound thing, which we can control when the tire's done, and then how it's how long we need to go. So for me, it starts there. I start working on a design, and I don't know if I have like a process, but I kind of just have a way of narrowing things down until it gets to the point where I like the way it looks, and I feel like I have an idea of how the driver is going to look and what it's like to drive the car, and I kind of combine all three of those factors into what the final design is going to look like.
Yeah.
And then when I'm get to that point, then I start doing some measuring of the items and backing up some of my visual ideas to what I feel works now.
Mm-hmm.
So so you're not like going, well, I'm way out here in left field. Like it's like, okay, so we, this looks, this space here, the size looks somewhat similar to this. We know this works, and so it's a lot of experience, and then just kind of a feel that I feel that you kind of have to have for the product, I guess.
Yeah. How long would you say it takes the process from idea to actual production? How long does that take usually?
And it probably depends how much of a hurry that you're in. There's some things that we've, like, oh, we know right away this is the tread we're going for. Sometimes you can get, designs done in a day's time, even less,
Mm-hmm.
depending how complicated it is. But then that's really just where the work starts. Once you're done there, and depending, and sometimes we 3D print the items to look at it in hand. I didn't do a lot of that at the beginning because it wasn't as it's a little more seat of the pants.
Yeah.
Just looking at the computer drawings. Later, you start to use more 3D printing because you start to get a little more like, all right, I want to see a physical look at this thing in my hand, and I like that. I'm kind of a visual type of person. I like to have things to hold that are products and things, and say, I kind of have that idea, like you want to set it up and look at it and say, do I really want this?
Yeah.
Is this really what I like? And that's kind of a motivating factor. And if you kind of have something, you make it or 3D print it, and you look at it later and you just go, I don't really like this.
Yeah.
And then, you can kind of pass on that. But yeah, I think you can go from a design to maybe having a physical item, in less than a month's time if you really want to push. You could do, and we've done that for several races. Sometimes you're in a time crunch and you want to get something done quickly. For a race, you can get it done pretty quickly, weeks or under a month. But, to go to production's a little longer.
Yes.
But to get some stuff where you can race or run a big race like a Worlds or something. We've ran a couple races where we only had one set of tires.
Yeah.
So, I was like, all right, well, I'd show them to Ryan, and I'd say, hey, this is when we get to the main, you can run these in the main.
Sweet. How do you feel about all of the tire brands matching each other's treads? They all have small pins, medium pins, big pins, endurance tread. And how does JConcept differentiate themselves from the other companies?
Well, I think that what that is just sort of there's some things you have to do in order to be competitive. And I think that, and then there's the racer's mindset, which the racer's mindset is, give me something that looks like this, and I'll be able to perform like this. And that's the racer's mindset, whether it's a car, whether it's a tire, whatever the case may be, that's their comparison. So what you're fighting against is you're fighting against a driver who just says, If you give me something like this, I can perform.
Okay.
So that's their feedback, and then the designer or the company usually has to take that feedback and say, all right, now what is it that we can do to make this come true, but do it in our own way?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the situation we're at right now, whereas we may have, if we're going to go back to 8 scale, and talk about 8 scale treads, you can say, all right, there was like over time, probably our best 8 scale tires. One of our first ones that we had that was successful was called the Crossbows. And that was because, and it was very similar to the bow ties.
Mm-hmm.
Those were, because that was what they said at the time was what you had to have an 8 scale. So we said, okay, well, what is it that makes this tire so special? And sure, everybody has their own theory, but at the end of the day, the driver has to say, if you give me something that performs or close to this, I'm going to be able to do this. And so we take that, do it our own way, and then we have this tire. Well, then you can get a little, once you have a few of these things that you have confidence in that the driver can perform, then you can get a little, the designer can get a little more risky and say, okay, well, let's branch out a little bit here. Based off of what I know and based off of watching, let's get a little bit more aggressive with making it different. And then we go into tires like we've had, like hybrids, and we made like 3Ds and stuff like that, where we kind of went out there a little bit on the ledge with something that, there's still pins and bars and everything, but they're definitely different. So you can start experimenting, and pretty soon you can hand the driver, we'll use Ryan because that's the situation we're in, and say, hey, try these hybrids, try these subcultures. Now, what do you think of these? And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I kind of like this. I don't need my crossbows anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, so we go from one to the next where you can kind of build on something, and you can say, all right, so now we have these, then they start winning with that tire. And then all of a sudden the crossbow doesn't exist anymore. They're like, I don't even need that tire now. The one that they had to have is the one you don't have to, they don't need it anymore, right? Because they got a new favorite.
Right.
So then it's all about the hybrids, or it's about the subcultures, and they start winning races with it. They start showing that, hey, I can have success with something. It doesn't look like what my competitors are running, and now I'm the favorite, mm-hmm. right? And now the competitors start looking at what you're doing, and they're saying, all right, well, what's going on over here, And then their drivers start telling them, well, hey, this is the hot guy now, and we need to be doing something like this. So now all of a sudden they start, so it works in a little, like the situation works a little bit like that. But over time you're allowed to get a little more, you can get more aggressive if you have something to lean back on.
Right, I get that.
So now as we have these different treads that are successful, that are working in different conditions, you can either fill in the blanks, something that you're missing. Say, hey, we didn't have this tire before, but now since we have this tire, it gives us an opportunity to fill in an area where we didn't have. So then when we started doing is we said, okay, we're going to certain races. It's like nobody makes a bar tire for 8 scale. So we're going to make a bar tire. So we made barcodes for 8 scale. And we show these things to Ryan. He's just like, oh, man, I don't know if this is going to work, Yep. And he's like, man, I still want to run hybrids, or, subcultures are my tire. Or, he wants to gravitate towards those ones you've had success with. And which, as a racer, I can't blame him. But then you start to drive a little bit with these other tires, and you start trying things, and they start to see that there is a place for this. If I get into this condition And now we're really far out there, right? So now before we were like, all right, we had to have a tire that was kind of like this. And now we're like really far out there. We're going to the hybrids, the subcultures, and now we're into this bar style tire. And so we're really kind of very different than where we started, but the driver's gaining some confidence in what's going on and having a full selection.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to go back to the original question is the reason why that everybody has things that are in the same categories is because at one point or another, drivers have gotten their butt kicked by something that looks like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, I get that.
And that's where that all comes from. And, and I can come up examples for us where we've made something similar to somebody else, and then I can show the examples of where somebody else has made something like us, and I would say the tire that we've reached the furthest out with is the detox tire. Mm-hmm. We really took everything that we had picked up on several events and then major events, and just decided to go with it with the one tire, and people saw it. It looked a lot different than anything else that was out at the time. Mm-hmm. And then when they started seeing people win with it, it was really blowing their mind, because it was very different. The construction, the separation, the looks, the details. And then I think that's when people started to really see that we were really kind of pushing the direction a little bit of the tread. And I think that's where we started separating ourselves, was when we started filling in the blanks. The hybrid tire and those towards the beginning were the ones where like, oh, that's kind of interesting. We'll see how it works. And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, they have these and this. They got a pretty good selection too. Oh man, what's this?
Yeah. And
then you see somebody that's doing well with it. Then they're like, all right, this is a pretty important tire in the business. Mm-hmm. So, and then like I said, the people having similar ones is based off of getting your butt kicked back and forth.
Yeah, that's the tire I ended up on at AMS for my main, even though I'm nobody, and that's like my only real race I did last year, and I thought it was awesome. It lasted my 20 minutes, and too bad I suck, but
Yeah, and but it's good because you can get a feel for a lot of different skill levels, mm-hmm. So, from we're racing with whoever our hot guy is that weekend, to where, we have guys that are, open class level. Then you got guys that are racing when you're racing and you're not considering yourself the fast of the fast, but you're having success with it and it trickles down to other people. That's what it's all about.
Yep. So my next question is foams. You guys, do you guys always run the same foams, and what's the reason for gluing them to the wheel? And
that's something that has really been around a long time. We started doing that in 10 scale, gluing the foams to the wheel. We were doing that in the 90s, and it came from running tracks that have a lot of traction. And you'd come off the track and you just felt like you could stiffen up the whole package. The tire and the insert kind of worked together out there, and you felt like you could kind of connect and stiffen up that whole package a little more. And we started gluing the inserts to the wheel, because when you play with all that stuff, there's a lot of movement when you're flexing the sidewalls and all that type of stuff. And so, we started gluing them and having success. And then when we got to that point in 8 scale, everything kind of goes in circles with all this stuff, where, the competitive level reaches a point to where everything gets more and more serious, more details, more work, more effort, and then the class starts to suffer a decline because it's too much work.
Mm-hmm.
So we go through these cycles, and I would say right around the late 90s, that's where we kind of hit that point in 10 scale where the tire work and the prep and the level just kind of reached a point of where it was gone too far. And then touring car took off, and then 8 scale started
booming,
getting more moving and getting more popular. And then we were able to kind of spread the racers out to 3 different forms of racing. So, but to go back, yeah, the gluing of the foams is something that we do when the grip comes up, and when you're like for a track, for example, if you're running on a track that's grooving up pretty considerably, like you're at that fall brawl or something like that, and it's hot out, the track's grooving up, you're going to the longer wear tires or something to that effect, and you just feel like you could get the car even more precise and make it more nimble. You can start gluing the inserts, and the tires don't move around as much when you're driving. They don't expand as much under acceleration. Mm-hmm. So the car is quicker in transition, in turning, and long sweepers, high speed. And then the acceleration just when you get on the power until we get on the brakes. So you can improve all those areas by gluing the inserts on high traction.
Okay.
And it's so strange because there's a good amount of people who I'll talk to who I would say, Spencer Rivkin is probably one of them, where whatever you think is the best, he wants that on the car right now. So if you say, I think this is going to be the good tire, I think this is the way we should prep it, he's thinking, okay, let's put it all on right now. I'm like, well, wait a second. We're not even, we're not all the way through qualifying. We're not even into the mains yet. Do you want to save anything? Do you want to build up in speed, get more used to the track? And I feel like he wants it all right now. So if the track comes around and you tell him that you think this is the best, he's going to do all the work. He's going to make it the best right now. Mm-hmm. Whereas Mayfield's going to do it a little bit slowly. He's going to say, oh, we're only into round 2 of qualifying. No big deal. Mm-hmm. He's just like, this is fine. I'm going to work on my car. My engine needs a little work, and I'm going to work on all this other stuff. And then I'm going to look at the track during the last round of qualifying, and then I'm going to throw everything at it.
Yeah. It's like the young bull and old bull story.
Yeah. And I think that Spencer's method makes sense at first, but then I think the other method to me makes more sense because in the long term, because you have somewhere to go. Mm-hmm. If you start off with what you think is the absolute best right away, where do you go from there? Backwards?
Exactly.
So I think that there's so many different elements to these vehicles that you can work on everything a little bit each time. Oh, I didn't quite like the tune that time. I'll work on that, or I'll work on, I got a little compound switch I'm going to do, or, little shock package, this or that. And there's so many things you can do that you can kind of creep up on this stuff. So to me, what I think a guy like a Mayfield feels is I'm fast enough to where I think with a decent run, I can top 3. And I'm going to keep tuning my package until I feel like I'm kind of peaking out at the right time. And and then you just, live with it. You live with whatever happens. You were either the man or you weren't. But I think it's easy to get a little too carried away for some people.
I agree with that.
And they start to get confused on what matters and what really doesn't matter, and they start burning down all these things, and they're really not at the driving capability yet to take advantage of all these things. So you have to take that into consideration. It's like, the biggest thing for somebody that's an average driver is, making sure your tires don't come unglued, finish your qualifier, try not to crash, and see where it ends up.
Yep.
But what I see with a lot of people is they think about all the details that a pro driver's thinking of, but they still don't have the basics covered. They're not finishing their races. Their tires are coming off. Their car's braking. Their engine isn't tuned. So it's like they're basically they're not getting the most out of themselves because the basics aren't covered. And so once you got the basics down, then I think you can kind of lean on these ultra tuning things, I guess you could call them. So it's like, to me, it's like if your car doesn't run, your engine doesn't run, you just broken your qualifier, you're not finishing, to worry about gluing your inserts is totally irrelevant. It's like,
that's the last thing you want to do.
That's the last thing you're concerned about. But you just want to finish your best qualifier without having any issues, and that's a win, so I think that somebody that can think of things that way will have a little more success, because you're trying to get the most out of what you can do, not somebody else. So
yeah, and another thing, even Joseph makes a good point of this. When people are doing setup changes on their car, if you do a whole bunch of setup changes all at one time, you don't really, and it works, you don't even know what really worked. He always stresses do one thing at a time, test it, see if it works. I mean, obviously at big races you can't do that, but I agree with you. If you do everything one time, you don't know what worked in the end.
Yeah, and I think that's the mistake a lot of people make is Paul and I always refer to it as everybody wants the magic wand. And give me the magic wand so I can make this thing perfect. And there really is no perfect. And what I see talking to people all the time is they have a hard time differentiating the track improving versus their vehicle improving. So, and we run into it all the time. They don't look at the track when they start and look at it when they like their car and make that comparison. They make a comparison based off of what just happened to them, not everything's improved. So they say, well, I changed my camber link and then I did this and did that, and I just have way more traction now. It's like, well, have you looked at the track? It's like there's twice the amount of traction on the track. So it's like you made all these changes, sure, but look at the track. I mean, you could have done nothing and it would have been
just as good,
twice as good.
Yeah.
So then they come up with their own theories, right? And they go, oh, so they get kind of lost right away because they're not trying things back to back and in similar conditions. So that's the big thing. Like you said, Joseph's saying that you take it a little bit at a time and you try it. You need to try it back to back in similar conditions. If you're not doing that, you really don't know what anything did.
I agree 100%. I think our final question on tires is going to be, what do you think is going to be next in tire technology?
Well, I think we're kind of in that phase right now where, we're at this point where we have these assortments of treads and, inserts and the wheels. We've kind of went through insert stuff. We went through tires and compounds. We've with wheels, we went through having harder wheels, and we're really kind of at the end of some of these things. And now, the last few years, I'd say that it's really, and it's always about the compounds, but we're a little further along in the compounds than, I think, than in some of the other items. I think that's where we've made some improvements the last, probably, since 2014, I'd say. We've made a couple a couple of improvements in the whole business, the whole industry. We've made some improvements there. So in terms of the next thing, I think the next thing that's going to be out there is, well, what I would like to see would be if it was a little more simple. I think the next thing would be to be able to narrow down the options a little bit more, so it's a little bit more simple for the customer, I guess, and the driver. I would like to see that happen for me personally, and then just the people racing. I think in racing, things get more advanced and more complicated, and I think that's actually the wrong direction. I think it has to get more simple and more straightforward for more people to be for the masses. To me, that would be a breakthrough. Right. As far as the equipment goes, I think what we're going to see is the compounds are going to become even more critical as we move along. They're critical now. Usually what happens is we find something in 10 scale, and then they kind of cross over quite a bit. Because in 10 scale, you either got it right or you got it wrong. Like, there's just very little of that gray area. And it's always great to test there because you know what you got. Yeah. In 8 scale, like we said, there's the windows a little bigger. But when you bring that thing that you found in 10 scale over to 8 scale, there's always big rewards there. So I guess we could say I think we're going to see some more development with the compounds. I think the inserts are going to change a little bit again. I don't know how far away we are from that, and then the wheels. We've many years back we made a 2-piece wheel for 8 scale. Never really caught on. People didn't really like it, but I don't think that that's over yet. I think that there's going to be some wheel stuff before it's all said and done. Yeah. So I think that there's going to be a little bit more fine-tuning with each piece over the next couple years.
Yeah, I can see that happen to make an overall better package and product.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. And they're all going to be a little different. I think there is a little bit of, I don't really know the right way to say it, but the manufacturers at the moment can enjoy a little bit of time with the items they have had that they've developed. So it's, there was a period maybe 10 years or less ago where everything was changing so rapidly, especially for the Truggy class, and it really made everything a mess, and nobody got a chance to capitalize so much on the investments that they made in the product because it was changing so quickly. And right now there are a little bit of time where you can perhaps get something out of some of your designs, and I think in general that it's that's where we are right now is people are making new treads, making some compound tweaks, but they're enjoying a little bit of a neutral period where there is some gains from some of the successful product that they've had.
Okay. And the only other question I would have about tires is, why don't you guys have pre-glued tires? Will you have any in the future?
Yeah, we actually used to have a lot of pre-mounted tires many years ago, and we were gluing them in-house, and essentially it's just a lot of work. And what we found is the majority of the equipment we were using was going to orders of our unglued items. So it was really hard to offer unmounted and mounted together, keep up with the mounting and fulfill all of our other orders as well. And the problem that we were having was when we were selling or distributing a pre-mounted tire, which there's no question that it's nice to have. And, you know, right now we do need some race tires that are pre-mounted again. But for us, and this is kind of like more of a business side, but people wanted to buy the pre-mounted items for less money than the unmounted.
That's pretty hard to do.
So it's like, well, what are we supposed to do? Give away our mounted tires? You know what I mean? Like, you know, so for us, from a business standpoint, it didn't make a lot of sense because we have these tires that people want. They're unmounted. We have orders. We can fill them, or we can mount them and make less money. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense for us at that time. I'm not saying that we're not going to have them eventually, but that's really the reasons behind it. Is there's a lot to it, and then it changes very drastically. Now we have, say we have our blue compound, we have green compound, we actually have a black compound, then we have R2, O2, Y2. That's 6 compounds for an 8-scale tire. So which compound do we pre-mount, right? So, well, the other thing we ran into is we get orders from the U.S. where everybody just wants green no matter what. Like, you could tell them you could say the track's blue groove or whatever, and they still want greens. But in Europe, everybody wants harder, long wear tires, so you say, hey, we do have pre-mounted tires. We have green compound available. Oh, no, we don't want green. That doesn't work. Okay, well, that's what we pre-mount. All right, well, pre-mount me the long wear stuff. It's like, all right, well, so we have to add something to our lineup at our and sell it the cheapest possible and ship it to Europe. So it's like it's there becomes a lot of difficulty there. And then all of a sudden the Worlds comes up. We have a new tire, and they're like, "Well, we don't want the old tire anymore. Now we want the new tire. We want the new tire, but pre-mounted in the O2 compound."
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard. So many treads, so many compounds. Very hard, and it's hard to please everybody, as we all know that.
Oh yeah, impossible, right?
Impossible. All right, let's move on to bodies. Because you guys do make bodies. And this is an argument that Joseph has with me sometimes. There's some people, he says that it's a placebo with bodies. It doesn't really make a difference. But how about you? Obviously, people believe they make a difference. People have told me. Even Dagani has told me that this body gives more downforce, and he uses it at this track. And I'll take Dagani's word over Joseph on that one. But with bodies, is it form over function or function over form for you?
Well, we started by making what I thought looked good. And then we transitioned to what we felt the drivers were asking for from a performance standpoint. What I've felt in off-road is that it's a balance between the two. If something is really, really ugly to the driver, it's not going to work. They, at the top level, they're not going to make it work. If they just don't like the way it looks, they're not going to use it.
It's a mental thing.
So I think that that's a lot of it is a mental thing. But there's a part of it that is performance. When we've been out running and testing, 8 scale's kind of one of the ones you can do some testing with, because you can pull right in. I mean, I think one of the, a lot of the tracks, Thornhill, we've done some RC tracks, Las Vegas, there's Nitro Challenge, any of these kind of tracks where we've had big races at, we've tested bodies. And it's easy because you come in the pits, you refuel the car, you go right back out with a different body, and you can look at the times and you can ask the drivers feedback. And I even played a trick on Spencer one time, and he was telling me about body stuff, and I said, all right, let's pull it into the pits. We're at RC track at Las Vegas. Richard was pitting him, and I said, just take the body off. Let's just run the car with no body. And Richard takes the body off. He's all pissed off because he knows he's got to clean the car. So Spencer starts doing laps with no body on the car, and he's like, the car is pretty good. I'm like, so now it has no body. And he's like, yeah, that's right. I'm like, so you're trying to tell me like these little subtle differences between the different bodies, but we just drove your car with no body and it was still pretty damn good. And he's like, yeah. So I'm like, so now we have to determine how much this really matters. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the importance? If your tires are a 10, is the body design a 10? You know what I mean? Not really. It's like we're down in the 2 to 3 range, So as the importance. So I, over the years I've learned to make a balance, I think, between what I feel looks good and performs well. And then some functionality is important in 8 scale, as we found over the years with fuel and fuel guns and, there's some function stuff.
Yeah, because that actually leads into my next question, which is that wings actually make a big difference. And how would you put the scale of a wing compared to a body and the difference it makes in a car?
Yeah, on an 8 scale, I would say that the rear wing is really important because there's a lot of weight up top. I think the difficult part about all these things in RC is what people don't always consider right away is, first of all, the designer engineer guys want to think about aerodynamics. And, they get all, hunkered down in these different details of the parts and like all I will say is like, all right, well, you're telling me about a part on this body that's directly behind the front shock tower. So it's like your whole front shock tower is blocking all of this. And I said, your suspension, your tires, everything on the car is really kind of blocking all these things you're telling me that's mattering. And anybody that's put these cars in a wind tunnel, that's the first thing they always say. But anyway, I've learned to take the driver's input and combine it with our experience and then the actual track testing for the bodies. Then you go to the wings, and it's kind of the same thing where I feel like you look at these details, you try to determine what matters, what doesn't matter. But then the other things you have to look at are the weights of all these things. And it's at the highest point of the car. It's also mounted the furthest back on the car. So people go, going on and on about, I'll try this piston or I'll put weight in my car. It's like, all right, well, think about your wing. This is the highest thing of the car. It also has a weight to it, and it's all the way in the back. So if any of this stuff matters at all, this is going to matter a lot just based on position. So wing position, the weight, the height is all going to matter just as much as the aerodynamics, if not more, because so much these days is about weight bias and where the weight is and can I add weight here or take it out there. And so you start looking at that, and like that is the biggest and the highest thing on the car. So you have to take into consideration all those things. So to me, the weight, the height, where it's mounted of the wing probably is just as, if not more important than the design of the wing. I think the design of the wing, there gets to be some mental effect there. These days, there's some rules that have kind of made the wings look a certain way on the side dams. So with the rules of IFMAR, where you have to be able to fit a certain size number back there, the side dams are starting to take on a similar shape. But still, the whole thing's movable. You know, you can move it up, you can move it down, you can move it forward and back. So I think those things are just as big, if not the biggest things, in terms of how the wing is working. I think the actual construction of the wing and the details is probably the fine-tuning part of it. You know, by the time it's IFMAR legal on the side dams and it's an appropriate width, you can only do so much to the, you know, either the gurney or the center dividers, but then it becomes about the weight and the placement. So I think that is huge. And then, you know, where you're trending, you know, what's trending in the business is as far as what's the cool design at the moment. That makes a big difference.
Right.
And you know, and then the front wing is exactly the same thing. You're talking about weight. You got a wing mount. Our in 10 scale, we have a wing mount plus the wing itself, so you got weight up there. Is it, you know, we started with them above the shock tower. We've kind of transitioned to and that was because Cavallari won the Roar Nationals with a wing on the front shock tower. It went viral.
Yes, it did. I remember.
Then you had to have a wing on the front shock tower. Spencer won the Worlds on AstroTurf with a wing on the front shock tower, and that just proved that you had to have a wing. And then we went to the low front wing. Then Ty Tessman started winning with a low front wing, and then we all moved to a low front wing. And so we're kind of in the low front wing mode right now, which is a little different because Mayfield was looking at it from a technical standpoint, and he always wanted the lower front wing. He always felt like that was the best setup. He's like, I want, you know, for him is he's like the top wing on the shock tower is behind the front axles, and he wanted his front wing either in front or in line with the front axles. So he was trying to rationalize wanting to have the lower front wing, and then over a period of a few years, and then he won the Worlds with a low front wing. It was a top wing. I have to go back to the photos now. But let me type it in. Yeah, so he actually used the tower front wing at the Worlds. So yeah, he ran what he considered when he first started with front wings, the behind the front axle, but since has gone to the version that's on the front. So, and I honestly think that probably the version that's in front is probably the one that's here to stay for a little longer.
So you do believe they actually make a difference?
When I've tried them personally, I have felt that it's very minimal. But when I've tested with these drivers and made the changes while they were driving, I felt there was a pretty big difference for them.
When would you or would not run one?
I think anytime you're looking to keep that nose down, it's never going to hurt. You know, if you're driving a race where you got big sweeping turns and you want to keep that front end down for some reason when you're jumping long distance with a two-wheel buggy, sometimes it's hard to keep that front end down. And if there's anything you can do to the initial in the jumping to keep the front down, I think that's what you got to do. And I think these front wings do help.
Yeah.
The amount that they help, that's subjective. Yeah. But I think in general, like we say, it's better to have it in your box of tricks than to not.
I would say so. If the fast guys think it makes them faster, then they know more than I do. That's for sure. They know.
Yeah, and there's really no reason not to have it or to try it. From a monetary standpoint, all this stuff's pretty cheap, and a part of the fun of all of this is experimenting for yourself and deciding if you like it or not.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I always lean on. We made this diffuser, rear, whatever you want to call it, and we made it for a 2-wheel buggy, and some people were like, oh, this is stupid, this is ridiculous. And it's like, look, part of this is to be fun, to have a good time, to experiment. We're talking about a $5 or $6 piece of equipment that you can bolt on. You can cut it out yourself, you can bolt it on, and you can see if it matters.
That's how things get figured out if you don't try it.
Yeah. So. And you know what? That gives you some things to do, and it really gives you it gives you like a job. It's like, hey, I got a goal this weekend. I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, and I'm going to see how it works.
Yeah, because you have some people out there that just love to test things, no matter what. They love testing more than racing.
They're tinkers.
Yeah, and that's where RC started. That's how it started.
People are tinkerers by nature. Some people are, and I think that's where
innovation comes
that's where all these items. Yep. That's where all these things come in.
Yep, I agree. All right, enough about bodies. I'm going to ask you a few questions here. What do you think are your best sellers, tires, bodies, or accessories?
We still do very well with our 10 scale product, our good working clay compound tires, like dirt webs and ellipses. Those are very good for us. The carpet and AstroTurf tires are getting in there as well. And then usually the accessories are those things that people feel that go hand in hand with that car. So, whether it's a front wing or a battery hold down type thing, those are good accessories. If there's a run of the B6 is really, really good with this wing and battery mounting type configuration, then those items do well for us. So
let's not forget the bling factor too, because JC makes some blingy stuff. If you got one, you got to bling it right out.
That was another thing that we concentrated on, a few years back, was we wanted to have some more, carbon and aluminum items, and we've kind of done that. Some of them have been really successful, like we talked about, some items that become known with that vehicle. And then some items we made for a popular or another vehicle, and they just don't sell. And we've gotten burnt by several things that don't sell. So that's sometimes what people don't think about also is, sure, they see that you've had some success here or there with some things, but they don't see the things that, they don't consider the ones that aren't successful. What do you do with it, and what happens with it, and who pays for it? And the reality is that we pay for it, whether it sits there or not, it's costing us money, and it might not ever sell.
Yep. What do you guys think you're going to branch out into next?
Right now we've always done 8 scale and 10 scale racing products. That's always I guess that's our main focus ever since we've been around. So those have been our biggest things. Over the past couple of years, we've done some RC monster truck stuff because we have a connection there in the business, and just the reason I started in RC was because of monster trucks when I was a kid. So I have a little bit of it's kind of a passion for me. So we do some RC monster truck stuff, which is still racing. The guys race them, they freestyle them, so it's still racing. So we've done some things in that area. We've recently done some touring car bodies, and we've gotten into that because we have Paul, and who is a very good touring car racer through the years, and he loves on-road, and basically it's been something that he can he can work on, and he can transition over to the races, and he can test and tune it, and it works pretty well.
I also see you guys are getting into a little bit of the drag racing side of RC too.
Yeah, I think that's been something that we got into that I probably would have never expected when I first got into this business that I would ever be interested in. But it's probably the last thing I thought we would ever be involved in. But it's actually been really kind of, I don't know, not really the word beneficial, but satisfying, because there's some times where people believe that you can only make certain things a certain way. And for us to be able to get into that market and show that we can make some real car looking items and they have a good following, I think it's rewarding because people are seeing that you're a little more well-rounded.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was so big until I started listening to Tim Smith's podcast. See? So he does a great job of marketing, promoting drag racing as well. So pretty good.
I mean, he's one of the guys that's been in it a long time. He's kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything RC, but that was something that he's kind of known for.
Yep. And I do enjoy his podcast. It's pretty good, actually. Really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's a real knowledgeable guy, smart guy. And yeah, he's got a lot of information.
Oh yeah, he does. Okay, so you have Ronafalk, you have Cavalieri, obviously you have Mayfield, Rivkin, Savoya. I'm talking mostly 8 scale guys because that's what I focus on. So you have 5 of some of the best racers in the history of RC right there. Obviously they're not cheap.
Yeah.
And has having these drivers paid off, would you say?
That's probably one of the most difficult things to determine in this business is what do you get back from the support that you give out there, right? It's very tough to decide how much all that matters. And I think that there's no question that if you're going to be in racing, you have to be able to win races. At some point or another, people always come back to that. You can only be just out there and in existence for so long before somebody says, well, hey, what do you win? And so from that standpoint, it's hard to do it without any racers at that level. Sure, you can have some success. You can pretend to have success. You can, whatever the case may be, you can, but somewhere along the line, you'd have to have some true success. And I think that ultimately puts your brand over the top.
Yep.
And sorry. And for us, Ryan's has really always gotten the job done for us on a racing level. He's always been able to race at the top, show that what we can do, and it's always been very good for us, in our market in the U.S. and it's went hand in hand with the products that we're pushing or selling at that time. And, and through that relationship, a lot of doors have opened for us with not only other drivers, but people believing in the product also and helping the name of the brand. So from that standpoint, you couldn't do this as we have without a Mayfield kind of guy. So from that standpoint, that's been important. But and then the kind of the goal was, you have to have your backup guy, who's going to be either the next guy or the other guy that can get it done in a different direction or on a different race, or you can't have one guy in one place or one guy in two places, right? So that's what's been nice about having like a Spencer, is young driver, a lot of dedication, and the idea that he still hasn't even peaked out as a racer, I think, is big and gives you another look, sort of.
Yeah.
There's a different look, and so I think that's kind of what you would consider like our 1-2 combination in the U.S., and then we added Cavalieri to that mix.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, to me, the thing about Cavalieri is he won the Worlds with our car in 2005, and I've always felt like to some extent he was one of our drivers. Even when he wasn't running our tires, he was running our bodies, or like I said previously, running the 4-wheel, or there was always some connection there. And I always felt like it was more natural for him to be on our team because of that past relationship. And I think that he has brought a different look to being a full JConcepts driver, because I think a lot of people feel that that he may be the best driver all time.
The GOAT?
There's some people that feel that way.
I'm one of them.
So I think from that standpoint, to be able to say, and for a lot of people out there to say that this guy races for you, I think that's a big boost for the brand, because you're getting somebody that many people believe is the best driver ever to believe in your brand when he has many choices. It's not like these guys don't have any options. And I think that's been a boost from that standpoint, that you can take somebody that people consider being the best driver of all time, choosing your equipment. I think that's big for the brand and the recognition. What it really, how you benefit from that, I don't, what I mean? It's hard to put a number on it, mm-hmm. because you can't really track that so much.
How about with
But and then we have something that's been completely different for us. With we started with Renault in Europe, and he's a very accomplished racer, and he's kind of very easy to get along with. Very nice guy that we've worked with over the years, and that was kind of getting our feet wet in the European market. On the 8-scale side of things, we've had good 10-scale success, and I think that he kind of gave us an idea of maybe what that market needed, and gave us some motivation to pursue it a little bit more, mm-hmm. and has helped our 10-scale our 8-scale brand kind of worldwide in terms of people associate him with 8-scale racing, I think, and for him to use the product, I think they feel like that gives more credibility to your 8-scale products. So I think that's the difference I feel that he's made for us, is he's kind of gave us an opening to be involved in 8-scale and in Europe and on a worldwide level.
Yeah.
And has showed that the product has worked. I think he's won like 2 or 3 French series nationals with our product, which is great. He's been in the A main at the Worlds now, I believe twice, with our product, which is really big.
Yep.
I'd say, going back to the conversation earlier, like he might be the kind of driver that I was when I was in my prime, I guess you could say. Make the main at the Worlds, can win your regional series or regional events, real competitive when it comes to the Worlds or the Nationals. Maybe not that guy that just won it, but he's very well, a good pro, I guess you could say.
Oh, he's got 3 Euro championships, I believe. So
yeah,
that's no easy feat either.
Yeah, that's no sneeze. Yeah. Right.
And then, of course, Runnefalk brings the World Championship to you with that. Well, a World Championship.
The driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was something that I felt like came together because of the other successes.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the Mayfields and because of the Spencers and their success, and maybe our one of our strengths maybe is having a relationship with these guys that kind of brought David on board and made him interested. And what's interesting about all this is he actually started talking to me about racing for us previous to him winning the Worlds. And we kind of had discussed it and, went over the options before he had even won the Worlds. And, obviously we were really interested because, in my opinion, he's probably Europe's best overall driver, because he can race 10 scale and 8 scale.
Yeah, he just did that. He proved that recently here at the Reedy. He did pretty well.
Yeah, he won both classes at the Euros this year in 10 scale. And then obviously he's won 2 or 3 times 8 scale already. And then he's a world champion in 8 scale. So he's obviously a guy that gets it done in both. And I think that's important to us.
And he barely races 10 scale. That's the thing about it. He doesn't race it much at all.
Yeah, he got second at the Worlds when Mayfield won.
But I mean,
and he doesn't run it that much.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, so it just shows that he's that type of driver. Mm-hmm. He's in on that level, and I think the success of the other drivers we've had and the relationships that we built there with those guys brought David's interest level up and made him interested in running for us. And he won a Euros and 8 scale in the e-buggy class with our product already. That was the first time we'd ever won a Euros and 8 scale. Sure, everybody wants the Nitro one, but you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
And the Nitro ones have been some of the toughest races we've been to. Racing Ungaro, maybe in his peak. Robert, we talked about earlier, who may be one of the best in the business when it comes to that class. And we haven't won that Euros yet with David, but and at the Worlds, I felt like he wanted to win that so badly there in Australia. I felt like he had put he kind of laid it all on the line to win that race, to go back to back. That's what he really wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And things just didn't really, everything wasn't aligned for him. Mm-hmm. He was really in good position to TQ it. Then he blew up that glow plug in one of the qualifiers, broke in another one. When he really should have TQ'd that race, I think. But he broke twice, and you got to count 4 out of 6. And I think he had those other 2 runs, he would have TQ'd. And then in the main, he had the issue with the clutch on the first or second lap, and you're done.
Yep. But he still managed to come back and got a top 5 out of that. Like,
yeah, and that just shows how fast he was. I mean, he didn't even really drive that great afterwards. Because you never really drive great after something like that happens at the beginning because you're probably rushed. But yeah, just on speed and just probably being pissed off.
Yep.
He got up there in the top 5, and yeah, he got close to Mayfield at the end for third, I think.
Yep.
So I think that he really wanted to win that race, go back to back, and I think he was ready personally, but everything else didn't fall into place.
And that's racing, dude, and especially nitro racing.
It really is.
But he's young. He's got time. He's got plenty of time.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit different than some of these guys. I think the European drivers and my mindset's a little bit different, where they put so much emphasis on the Worlds and the Euros, and rightfully so. But to me, I always say, look at how many races we have in between these races, and it's not about that one race that you won. It's about how many that you were winning in between there as well.
Yep.
And if you just think that you're a one-trick pony, you're going to win this Worlds every 2 years, and that's going to keep you going, I don't think that that's everything. You have to be, you have to be competitive all the time. And if you're beating down the doors of the top 3 and getting your wins at all these other races, to me that means just as much, because in today's world, you're only, these Worlds wins only last a week or 2. And then everybody moves on to the next thing. So you got to be consistent with your results. That's what's the most important for me.
Well, there'll be a DNC. There's going to be quite a big group of Euro drivers coming over. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait. And then again, this is why I'm a big proponent of having an actual series, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
So yeah, the DNC is going to be insane. Track, not a lot of people. Well, nobody's going to be on it. Different built at the time. I think we're going to see the same guys we saw at the Worlds. Personally, it's going to be very close. I think Elliott Boots is probably going to be a little quicker at Nitro Challenge than he was at the Worlds. I see him doing extremely well. He hasn't had a really good
year. He didn't have a good year,
but I feel like he's going to have something there. Of course, on Garo, he's gonna be there. It's gonna be nuts.
I hope my dark horse Euro guy is Berton. I think if he shows up and he drives like he did at the Euros, it's gonna be on. He's really fast.
Yeah, I really like him as a racer. I think he's got what it takes. The question is he really love RC? I've never really talked to him. I don't know what his level of passion is. I kind of felt like he was kind of in and out for a little while.
Yeah, I think he was finishing school or something, but
yeah, and you gotta be all in, man.
100%. 100%.
It is.
Yeah, DNT is gonna be awesome. I'm excited about that. Very excited. All right, let's talk a little bit about marketing, because JConcepts, I think, does a really great job. I really enjoy your weekend roundup of all your racers, like your blog with wherever they are in America, whatever they're running. You put their podiums up, you talk about them. You do your Facebook lives at sometimes. I catch them. Very active on social media. I mean, how has this helped your brand exposure? Of course it's helped, because that's the one weapon that every company has, big or small, is they have social media, and everybody's on equal footing, I believe. So how important has that been to you and JConcepts?
Yeah, it means a lot. It really has helped us, because I think ever since I've been into this business, we've had to kind of do things a little bit of a different way. There was kind of when we got into this business, the magazines were still pretty big. The internet was coming around. The website stuff was coming around. There was forums back then.
Starting Grid.
Yes, did you say Starting Grid?
Yeah, S-Grid, Starting Grid.
Yeah. And that's what was big back then. But as we've kind of gone along, we went through that period of you had to be in the magazine. Then we went through the period of you had to be on one of these websites, whether it was NeoBuggy or Red RC or whoever the case may be. And now we're kind of in that you have to be on social media phase. And so over the years, we've went through we started with videos. Our very first product announcement was with the BJ4, and we made a video. And and that was in 2003 when we first made a video. It was real crude and got things going, but it was very different back then because we could put it on a forum and we put it on our website, and that was kind of how we got started. We couldn't afford to be in the magazines, and then when we got into the magazines, it was like, this isn't really doing as much for us as we really were hoping, because so many people had moved on to internet media. And so now we're kind of in the Facebook or the social media phase. Then we're into the Facebook Live phase, which is kind of the latest thing. And it's important to be represented, I think, in all those forums, because people are so tuned in now. They can direct their news to them by what they're interested in.
Yep.
And if we can provide some content to them that they might be interested in or bump into, then that's a bonus for us. And some of these things, like we talked about earlier, it's hard to measure. It's hard to measure what some of these drivers can produce for you. I think that was the original question. But it's also hard to measure what some of these other things do for you as well. But you have to do it.
Yep. Yes, you do. That you do.
So yeah, that's why we try to concentrate on it. And it's something that I like personally. I like Instagram and Facebook, and I just try to stay active and see what's going on. And it's important.
Yep.
For me to see what's happening and what people are saying, and you can pick up on some things out there. There's obviously a lot of BS that you have to kind of sift through here and there, and what all that means. But in general, there is a lot of good out there if you want to use it for that.
Yeah, but you don't shy away either. You don't shy away sometimes. I've seen you get your punches in now and then. So
yeah.
And
and I think that's part of it. Part of the fun is everybody has a voice, and there ends up being a time where you have to say, all right, this is my standpoint on this.
Yeah. All right. On marketing and media, this is a question I think you might agree with, because you actually started to do something about it. But do you feel that RC media isn't covering races or covering brands as they should? Because you've been sending Thomas to a lot of races that I think most people end up watching that because it's the only real live feed there. He does a great job. I've watched him in action personally. He's constantly busy, as well as helping people out with tires. Did you start doing that because you just felt that the media and RC wasn't given racing and brand coverage?
Well, not 100%. I felt like for me it was important to be more self-contained, I guess. I didn't want to have to rely on other people to show that we were doing something or accomplishing something. To me, I felt like I was at other people's disposal. and I was waiting for them to do something, or I had to pay somebody else to do something to do it. And for me, it just felt like it's like, look, this is why we're here. We have these racers that are, they're working hard. They're trying to get results. They race for us, and we're going to do our best to try to show that these guys are doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes for everybody. It's not just, it's easy to get hung up on the best of the best.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other guys that are doing things in other classes. There's other things that guys are doing in the pits, or their cars look good. And I always feel like I'm a picture guy. I like photos. And to me, that's what I liked about Thomas or other people that shoot photos is that's what I like to look at these things. And to me, that's what's cool about RC is we can get these really nice shots of the cars on the track and in the pits. And it was important for me to have our own portfolio, I guess you could say, of photos and things that we could use. And it just, you get tired of begging other people to get them for you.
Yep.
So for me, it's, we went through the phase of, and now we've kind of been in all these different directions, and they are extremely valuable in the times when Neo Buggy was big. Red RC is still doing extremely well, and we're still friends with all those guys, and we've done a lot with them over the years. But to make myself happy, I think more than anything, we wanted to do these things a different way because, like I said earlier, we have these drivers that we want to showcase, and we have products we want to showcase, and then we have, a team, an upcoming team, and we have, I guess, beginning and veteran drivers that we want to show that they belong also.
Yeah. Well, I think I love it because I got to see races that I normally wouldn't get to see, and he does it with a gimbal and a cell phone, man, and I think he does a great job of when he goes to these races. So it's greatly appreciated on my side of things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I see every so often when I'm watching and I'm not there, and I see pop on, and it's cool. Yeah, I enjoy seeing the guys that pop on, and every once in a while, hey, what's up?
Yep. All right, so we're winding down a bit here, but you do have your own race series, the INS series, which you have a race coming up here shortly, because we're actually it's the weekend before DNC or the week just before DNC. Is this the going to be the first INS race for the year?
Yeah, it's actually this week.
Mm-hmm.
We're leaving on Thursday for that, and that's our first race of the year, first national type race of the year.
Mm-hmm. How does that go? How many races are there in the INS series?
We have 5 races in the INS. We have a winter, spring, summer, and fall national, and then we have a finals. So it's 5 races, and then the first year this year that we're going to have a carpet and turf national series.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have 2 what we consider national series going on, and that's a 4 race series. So the INS is a best 3 out of 5, and the carpet and turf is 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 out of 4. And so we'll be, working on and managing those 2 series throughout the year. Those are, like you said, the national series. The others, we have individual events,
mm-hmm.
which aren't necessarily our events. Some of them are. The others are we're just like maybe a sponsor of or major sponsor or something.
Yeah, JC does sponsor a lot of. You guys definitely put a lot of money back into racing, which I think is really cool. Why did you come up with what was your thinking on doing the INS series? Why did you want to do that?
It started a while back. we had a race called the Clash. So 2007, we created this race called the Clash, which the idea at the time was nitro was the most popular in our area, and electric was kind of getting built back up, but was kind of in a lull, I guess you could say. So what we wanted to do is we're like, well, let's bring both of these together. We'll run one race where there's nitro and electric at the same race, and just have some crossover. And you don't see this very often. So we ran 10 scale and 8 scale at the same race on the same weekend, and that was in 2007. So that's kind of how we got started with the events. And when we first started, it was a great idea, and I was really into it. And then it became difficult to do just that very first event. And I was like, God, what did we get ourselves into doing this? And because, at that time we built the track, because there was a transition going on with the club, and they didn't really have a club. They just basically gave me the keys and said, hey, we'll maintain it, but you guys can build whatever you want. We went there and we built the track, and that was a ton of work that I hadn't done in a long time. And, it was me and Paul out there, and we got, my dad was helping. We had, just anything, it's just you're building all this stuff, and stuff that you did, I did when we first started in racing. You went member of a club, you built tracks, but when you get into the business and you've been a pro racer and you go back and you start building tracks, and it's like, man, what am I doing? And but anyway, we went through that, and it was interesting because that's when the online stuff really started. So we tried to combine that with the first event in Florida that was ever on Live RC. And that worked really well because we debuted a Florida event. We brought Mayfield in, and Lee Martin was a driver, and we had many good drivers there. We did it on Live RC. It was on video, and we had all these goals that just hadn't been done before in this area. And so it went well. Anyway, we got into having other events. We started these races where we had the Clash, we had the Rage, we had the Wave, we had these different named races, and we kind of got dedicated to some of these different events. We had decals made that had all these different names of events, and then when we started traveling, or I started traveling doing these events, I realized that, after we did it for about 2 years, is I was like, well, we should really turn these events into a series, because we're already out here, we're already doing the events, we might as well keep track of it. And if people want to gain points and travel the thing, they can do that. Mm-hmm. So, and now when you look at it, from my standpoint, sure, there's not a lot of people that are going to be able to travel to all these races, because not everybody is either a pro driver or in the industry, or is going to jump in the van and drive from North Carolina to the Dirt Nitro Challenge.
Oh yeah, nobody.
So there's not a lot of those guys out there, and so I knew that right from when we started that it was a challenge to get many people to commit to that many events. But I wanted to I felt like the pieces were halfway in place, and we might as well put all the pieces in place. Mm-hmm. So we renamed the events, and we structured it with tracks that we had a relationship with, or that had we felt would get a good turnout. And we combined them all finally, about it was 8 or 9 years ago now, into a full series. So, since that time, we've had that many races through this series, and it's went really well. I mean, I think that in general, when we first started, I always feared that other racers would come in with other brands and beat us. Mm-hmm. and then as time has gone on, it's almost felt like the ultimate compliment because we've won a lot of the races, because either way, one way or another, we have some guys that can stand up and win a lot of the races. But when you bring everybody in, whether it's Jared Tebow or Ty Tessman, there's going to be some races you don't win.
Yep.
And so, like for instance, last year Ty Tessman ran the series, and he won the two-wheel drive series, and it was like a big thing. It was like, so you think of it both ways, it's like, well, we didn't win our own series, but it's like the fact that this guy chose to come and run our series was a big deal.
Yep.
And him and his dad, and they would come in and they, as they're going all out, they're going for the win, and it made it very competitive. It probably isn't quite as much fun when those guys race because the level of intensity goes up, but also at the same time it's a nice compliment that they wanted to come race with the series, and they felt that it was necessary for them to do it. So it was kind of a nice thing from that standpoint. So I guess that would be the 8th year. Was 2018 was our 8th season on the series, and then this year we're in our 9th season, and the race this coming week, which is at Smack Track, or they've renamed it now the Velocity RC. It looks like it's a sold out. We got 350 something entries paid already, and it's good for the tracks because the way we work these races is it's with the track or the hobby store, and they're in control of the entries. So it's a good thing for them, and it's a good thing for us. We get out there and market and show what we got.
Yeah, anything that gets more people racing, I'm down for. Point series, and determining a champion over a series of races is awesome. Which leads me to my last topic.
Hold on 1 second.
1 sec, okay.
Let me.
So yeah, about series, that brings me to something that I'm very passionate about, is this new RCGP World 8 Scale Series. JConcepts seems like it would be a perfect candidate for this.
Right.
I know it's not the easiest thing to just up and do because it's somebody creating something from nothing. But why haven't you chosen to support this? Or it's just that you don't know too much about it? Or what do you think about it?
I think a couple things. First of all, I think the races, are going to be good. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the locations, they sound good. They've had races before at those locations. I see it being, I see that part as going pretty well. Really one of the things that we decided before this year started was we wanted to use whatever our budget and our funds were for what we had already decided we were going to do it for. And when the when the RCGP stuff started to I guess pick up the, however you want to say that,
pick up the pace.
Yeah, pick up the pace, pick up the heat. We were talking about it at the Worlds. There was a meeting at the Worlds. Thomas attended for us, and I talked to Joseph during the Worlds about it a little bit, and so when the heat started picking up and the pace started picking up with it, we had already decided what we wanted to put our money into really for the next year. Mm-hmm. So I would say that would be one of the biggest things was,
right,
if you're going to kind of make a decision internally where you want to spend your money and all that type of stuff, and then you have to come along and then change that and change everybody's mind along the way. It's kind of a slippery slope. If somebody says, "Oh, well, it's just $100, or it's just this, or it's just that," sure, maybe it is, but at the same time, you're kind of going against what you wanted to start off the year by doing.
Yeah, I get that.
And so I would say that's number one. Was we had already made up our mind what we wanted to do and what the direction we were going to go, and we were moving that direction. Not that this isn't going to be successful this year. I think there's going to be some success with the races. I do have some of my own thoughts about how this all works and the direction that the business and the industry is heading, and my own concerns whether or not, regardless if we had the money to put into that at that particular time, if that was what is really worth it. So I have my own concerns there that I talked with Joseph about a little bit, and I think it's kind of funny because I think I do get along pretty well with Joseph.
Yeah, I actually
we're somewhat similar.
Very much similar
in some of the things that some of the thoughts we have. He's a more outspoken, I think, than I am, but some of the nuts and bolts of certain things we're very similar on. But yeah, so we've talked about that, but I do have some concerns, and there's some timing issues, and then there's some realities of RC that we have to face, I think, in the immediate future and right now, and really see where all this really fits in. I think in a perfect world, or a world with unlimited budget, it would be great to see these guys race each other in a series format around the world, to see who the best is. And I think what I kind of see some of the outsides is, there's a ranking system that's out there, and I don't think JQ particularly likes that ranking system. And then I think at the Worlds he was there, but I don't think he 100% agrees with the way the Worlds are run, and he has his own thoughts and views on it. So I think this series to him makes more sense. And I think there is probably some truth to that. But we have to decide, the costs of sending these drivers to that many races around the world. And as we came back to earlier, does it make sense? Does that actually do anything for you? If you're going to take a team of guys, like I just say, for instance, I don't even know who's going, but say Cavallari and Jorn Newman is going to run for S-Works. You have to fly these guys to the Philippines for a race when I'm sure the amount of sales that these companies produce in the Philippines isn't what it's going to cost them to attend the event. So you have to take that into consideration as why you're really going to be there. And then you could say, all right, well, it is a World Series. You have to move around regardless of the locations, which, you can write that, into the thoughts, right? But it certainly is something to be concerned about. So those are some of my concerns, I guess you would say, is, the cost to be involved, the amount that you have to pay to be involved, and is it worth it at the end of the day? Is it worth moving from what the normal and the norm is to something different to see if it's going to have a positive
I get that
positive
fair.
impact.
I get that. I actually get that from a lot of people that I talk to about it. But I also heard these same people say that something has to change in RC. So it's like, well, I like to say for change to happen, change actually has to happen. So I think you're very forward thinking. I also think you're very cautious. You don't do anything without thinking about it over and over again. So I understand that. You are very similar to Joseph, except that you know how to be quiet and not express everything that you want and not fight with everybody. But I see the science. I call it science mode, and I see it in both of you. You guys think about a lot of things, and I think you have a mutual respect for each other as a car designer, as you as a tire designer in the industry. But I mean, I think we definitely have to have something to change in RC. I think a lot of people will see if when this is successful this year, even if not all the top drivers coming, it's still gonna happen, and hopefully you change your mind in year 2, man, and we see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things that I think are that are important about all of that is, the like you said, the changing something in order to see the change. Of course, that has to happen. But I think there's other things that we have to look at besides, this change on what exactly are we selling and what exactly are we hoping to get out of it. It's a little different for us because we don't sell a vehicle. To first get into RC, somebody has to buy a vehicle, right?
Yes.
So we're kind of way last on the pecking order in terms of when you get into RC.
Right.
You do upgrade when you get into RC and you look for different things, but the first people that can benefit from any type of exposure is somebody selling a vehicle. But then I think part of that is also it has to be in their budget. And the biggest thing about RC that the issue is the sticker price is big for a race car. It's very high. And I think if we're trying to market I would say probably the most expensive vehicle to somebody, it's a hard sell. We're talking about by the time you're ready to race with an 8-scale buggy is probably about $2,000. And that's a tough thing for people to swallow, to try something, to get into it. Sure, it looks cool. It looks great in videos. They're photos. They're awesome to race. But there's a lot that goes that's a big sticker price for that. Yep. And that's why the companies, this industry is different right now than it was years ago. And there's many different types of RC cars, and there's all kinds of different genres to be involved in. And so really companies that make these budget level and entry level vehicles, they're the ones that stand to gain by the exposure immediately.
Yep.
Because they make an entry level vehicle. And it's easy to buy a $200 or $150. Some of these entry level things are under $200 now. And that's really the people that benefit to some exposure is the entry level vehicle because they can get in it at a low price point. And I think that's the issue that I see is even if we're introducing this to new people eventually, at the beginning, you're only introducing to the same people that we already have, and we're just showing them a race that they've already seen. But the end goal, of course, is you get more exposure, the media coverage goes up, you get some stuff to go viral, then you get some more exposure that wasn't there before. Then you're starting to see some benefits, but then you come back to the point of, all right, well, is this in somebody's price range? Are they willing to go to the nth degree like we are to race? And that's tough. So we have to narrow down the person that's really able to do this. They have to be technically savvy, a little mechanical, willing to put all the work in, build the stuff, and afford it. Mm-hmm. So you start choking off a lot of potential people just by all these little variations that you have to be involved in. So I guess those are a lot of my concerns that I've talked about. From a racing standpoint, sure, there's nothing better than a series, finding out who the best is. But when you look at all the details, it starts to get a little bit more scrambled in terms of what's the best. Mm-hmm. And so that's my...
I understand all of that. I mean, I just... we kind of started a separate podcast just for RCGP. And mm-hmm. just to answer, just to talk about it and whatnot. But I think one of the biggest things is that people don't actually know what we're doing sometimes too. And I think we need to hit a certain demographic of people, and I think that is the people that race full scale vehicles, primarily motocross and whatnot like that. Because RC is I think 8-scale, especially 8-scale racing, is very similar to motocross racing. And mm-hmm. we'll take Joe Bornhorst as an example. He came from a motocross background, and he picked up an RC pretty good. Not saying every person that will happen to every person, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think they have the disposable income to throw $2,000, $3,000 at an 8-scale setup, because they're throwing $20,000 at a motocross setup. But we will see. I'm excited about it. But here's my question to you: if JConcepts could put in an RCGP team of 2 guys, it doesn't have to be the same chassis or anything, just 2 guys from past and present, who would you choose?
So kind of run that by me again.
If
past and present.
If JConcepts could put in a 2-man team from drivers past or present, who would you put in that team?
So like you're saying that they could be like, you're saying like if I could just have an all-time great.
Yeah.
Well, obviously Mayfield has to be one, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty easy. And then you gotta, you almost have to go, like in this situation, you almost have to go with, if the guys are on my team, Rouna, him and Rouna would be probably the 1-2 punch that you'd want to have.
Yeah, that's a good 1-2 punch.
Obviously, they got 3rd and 4th at the Worlds. They'd be pretty tough. Probably the top. Obviously you got to put Ungaro up there now. Mm-hmm. Him and Robert Battle would probably be pretty tough. If they were on the same team, they'd be pretty tough. So if you had like Mayfield and Rouna, that would be a tough combo. Then Robert and Ungaro would be another tough combo. Then you'd have like Testman and somebody. Trying to think who you would put him with.
You can throw Dagani in there. Put Dagani at his prime.
He's not even close. I don't care what Greg says on the internet and who he bags on. I know Greg really well.
I know you do.
We're friends, but not only am I not in those guys' category, either is Greg. That's for sure.
Not
those guys are special, man. They are special drivers.
Yeah.
Greg was good. He called me before he went to that Worlds. I talked to him about a lot of stuff, and but yeah, these guys today, between the Testmans and the Ungaros and Mayfield and Ronafolk and Cavalier, these guys are special, man. These guys are amazing.
Whole different level. Well, I got a few questions from our viewers that posted. There's not too many. We'll go through them, and then we'll go into the 10-second segment. My first question is from Jeff Miles, and he says, it's not 8-scale related, but in the past, there's been no interest from JConcepts in the RC dirt oval scene. They recently did a tire test at the Chili Bowl. Is there a dirt oval specific tire coming?
Well, what we did there is we brought a tire that we felt that we designed for 10-scale dirt off-road, which the tire is actually called Sprinters. And we're going to release this tire in the next month or two. And what we would consider that as being an off-road dirt tire. But we tested that tire. It's a pin-style tire. It has a somewhat sprint car look to it. But it's a high-performance style tire, which to me means that it's a smaller pin, more separation. Some of the tires that are, I guess, would be more like replicas of the real tires, I don't think are as race-inspired. They're a little more replica-inspired. So our tire is a little more racy, I would say. And it's going to perform in a wide range of conditions. So I would say, if anything that we've coming out with that's dirt oval specific, that was something during the whole time we thought of dirt oval, and we thought of off-road racing at the same time. And then some bodies. We're going to get into some bodies for the dirt oval cars. We're probably going to start in the street spec side because we can do some nice licensed street spec tires. Bodies. And the cars are simple. The bodies are cool. We can start there and then maybe transition over to some more of the little racier classes. And so we have the Sprinters tires. We're going to get into some street stock bodies. And then, of course, probably our best performing tire during our oval tire test was, and it's all condition driven, but the Ellipse tire that we run on 10-scale buggy right now, that was our best performing tire on the dry track at Chili Bowl. That'll be our control tire for our dirt oval race we're having in Omaha this year. And so Ellipse rear, dirt web front, and that's probably our race. That was our raciest, fastest tire during our test at the Chili Bowl, and that'll be our control at our race. But if you're racing on more dirt, loamy dirt, that Sprinter is going to be pretty good.
Okay. The next question is from Joe Zaire Jr. He goes, does Gotti Jr. get jealous when Jason goes on another man's podcast?
I think so. I think he definitely does.
Oh, gosh. And, of course, I got a few JQ guys who are like, when will JQ drivers get fin turnbuckles? Will Smith.
Yeah, Jeff Keaton.
You gotta call him the Jeff now.
What do we call him?
You gotta call him the Jeff.
The Jeff.
Yes.
Did he change?
Yeah, we changed it. It's Jeff the Jeff Keaton.
Okay, the Jeff. All right. Well, I will say we are going to make a body for the JQ car.
That's great, because that was the next question from one of our guys, Edward Moorhead.
Yep. So we are working on a body for the JQ. That was Joseph has talked to me about it over the years. I think he liked our body, our silencer, because the stock body kind of looks a little like our silencer. But we are going to do something specific for the body. I'm talking to Brent Densford a lot about it. And Jeff pointed out to me today, I noticed all the kits that Brent's got in, and he's saying that we need turnbuckles for all those cars.
Jeff, man. The Jeff.
The Jeff, man. It's like, Yeah, he's relentless.
Isn't he? Is he?
He's gonna be on me about these turnbuckles until he gets a different car.
I know. He's a good guy though. He's been a great addition to the team. All right. Yeah, that's about it. Not too many. I mean, we had another question from Patrick Matthew Dillon Jr. He said, let's use the 8-scale worlds as an example. How do you know when to change tire compounds or tire tread pattern? I mean, you kind of covered that earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing we talked about. When it was fresh, we went with the softer, small pins. As it got more grooved, we went a little harder, stepped up the size pin. Then once it got really grooved and a little warmer, we had to step up. We went a little bigger pin again and a little harder tire, to the point to where we kind of got to what I felt was going to, or what we all felt was going to be good enough for the semifinals and finals. And that's kind of where we stuck around that tread size and then worked on the compound a little.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering those questions, and thank you to our viewers for submitting the questions. Sometimes I forget them, but I had them lined up for this one, for Jason this time. Now it's time for the FastRaceShop.com 10-question, 10-second segment.
Now we go into the Fast Race 10 questions in 10-second segment. Fast Race is a world champion option parts brand made in Italy. Fast Race drivers include Davide Ongaro and Riccardo Berton, and they run the innovative performance-enhancing parts that Fast Race makes for most 1/8 buggies, including the world-famous honeycomb shock bladders and caps. Go to FastRaceShop.com and type in Lefty 2019 to get 10% off your purchase now.
So, hey, Jason, are you ready for the FastRaceShop.com 10 questions, 10-second segment?
I'm ready.
All right. First question, because I like Rip and I know you like this drink. If Starbucks ran out of Very Berry Refresher, what would you drink?
Probably maybe a Coke, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, number 2. Monster Truck RC is...
Cool.
Yeah, I think so too. They look pretty cool. Number 3, wrestling or basketball?
Basketball.
Because I seen you be going to like Hulk Hogan's shop a lot and taking pictures there, and I thought you was turned into a wrestling fanatic.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much of a fanatic, but a lot of the stuff kind of comes back to when you were a kid and stuff that you were into, and that's what a lot of that stuff's about.
Yeah, my son's got me watching it again, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't miss a night when it comes on. So, number 4, Michael Jordan is
the GOAT.
Yeah. Number 5, is dirt oval the next big thing in RC?
I wouldn't say that it's the next big thing. I would say that it's ramping up to compete with some of the other genres. It's starting to become less of a niche.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 6, how much does Gotti Jr. like PlayStation?
Whew. He likes it. I think the Patriots are 1 and the video games are 2.
And he likes wrestling a lot too. He really
wrestling. Yeah. I actually, it gets to the point where you're tired of him talking about football and you hope he talks about wrestling.
Awesome. Number 7, 10th scale or 8th scale?
For me personally, 10th scale.
Okay. Number 8, your top 3 at Nitro Buggy at DNC this year.
Is this in no particular order?
No particular order.
Ungaro, Mayfield, and Rana Falk.
Okay. I would not go against you on that top 3. Number 9, Lummy Loose Old School or New High Grip Smooth Track?
So what was the first part of it again?
Lummy Loose Old School type of track or the New High Grip Smooth Track? Which do you prefer?
I think I would rather have good traction and smooth.
Okay. And number 10, the Super Bowl was?
Low scoring.
Yeah, it was boring. It was boring.
Low scoring.
But not for Gotti though. I'm sure he loved the score.
It couldn't have been any better, I think.
Yeah. But thank you for partaking in the 10 question, 10 second segment. Also, I'd like to thank you for coming on and talking with us. It's been a very productive talk. I know you're a busy man. And do you have anything else to say before we go?
No, I appreciate it. I really like seeing, how passionate you are about RC, and I see your posts all the time. And, I kind of bump into different things. You're always out there, giving your guys a shout out or a bump of enthusiasm. I think that's important. And so playing a big role out there, getting involved in the podcast and giving people something to listen to.
Yeah,
and
should be good.
So I appreciate you and everyone that's involved with doing that. And just the listeners that are willing to listen through all these theories and questions, and then JConcepts supporters, and then all of our drivers.
Yeah, man. And Salty Joe says, "What's up?"
How you doing, Salty Joe?
Yeah, he was super happy to meet you at PMB last year. He says, "Hey, you're Salty Joe," because I got him a hat made like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you for your time, and you have a good day, good evening now, and I'll see you at DNC.
All right, thank you.
All right.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We are now at that point of the show where you should fasten those seatbelts and put your big boy pants on.
Whoa. Things are about to get serious.
It's time for the JQ Racing Rant.
So yeah, Joseph, I just got off the phone with Jason Ruona. That was a pretty good interview. How you doing?
So all good.
Yeah.
All good.
So now we've come to the JQ Racing Rant segment of the podcast. Do you have any ideas for a rant this week? No, it doesn't matter anyway, because you're not going to be able to do it because I am going to rant again. So, save your ideas for later. You do enough ranting with your fingers on Facebook, You and
I feel like you really enjoy doing this podcast.
Hey, let me tell Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Because it's like you're the boss. You're like, hey, JQ, would you like to? No, you're not going to.
Well, I'm the boss anyway. You just think you're in control most of the times. It's so
Okay.
funny. Like when we're ever traveling or something like that, if I hear you go quiet for a minute, and then I can hear your fingers on your phone somehow, like that. I was like, Joseph's quiet. And it's just like not saying anything to me, not looking at anything. Maybe I'm focused on something else. And I look over and you're like, I said, this guy is arguing on Facebook. He's angry, finger typing. Like, your fingers are flying. You're concentrated. I'm like, give me your phone. Give me your damn phone before you post that.
Yeah, my editor-in-chief.
Yeah, too bad I can't do it all the time. So this week's rant is something I hear quite often when I talk to new guys who want to be on the team, or just talking period about what they say they need to get faster at a track. And it's something that I'm kind of a bit confused about. And I think obviously I will always say we do a great job of this at JQ Racing, but guys say, if I just get the proper support, I'll be faster from this team or from this company. And I'm kind of confused what they mean by that. Are they saying if they get a better deal, that they can get more stuff? Or does it mean that they get all the top driver setups, which we know doesn't work for everybody? Or what do they mean by support? Do they mean people that actually encourage them and help them out and answer their questions when they want? I'm confused by this question. I think most of the time, a lot of people mean maybe a better deal, or I don't know. Like I heard people saying, if I just get this, I don't get the team driver setups. I'm like, well, those guys develop their own setups for themselves. Like, you gotta go learn to do this stuff. I think you do a pretty good job of having basic setups that people can learn from and just experiment with and learn. What do you think? Like, what do you think people are talking about when they say they need the proper support so they can go faster?
Yeah, I think I think there's some truth to what they are saying, but the people who say that are saying it in the wrong situation. Or they're the wrong people to say that. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some truth to having the right support, and when you have the right support, you can do better. But it's not going to help the people who say that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel
though.
like it's an excuse for the people who say that, oh, if only I had the right support, then I would do better. The people who say that are not going to improve if they got better support, because they have the wrong attitude. They aren't even good enough, or they aren't doing the right things to deserve the support. If someone like Mayfield or Tebow said something like that, well, if only I had the support, then I would do better. Well, what could that support be? Okay, it could be support in that the manufacturer works on improving the product to better suit the driver. Okay, that's going to help. The manufacturer pays them a bigger salary, so they, don't have to worry about their paychecks and bills and stuff, and they can just focus on racing. Yeah, that's going to help. Or they send them to more races so they can race more and improve. Yes, that's going to help. Like, there's many different things that they could do. They send a good mechanic for nitro racing to every race, and they work together and they improve their strategy and pit stops and all that stuff. So, okay, for them, the support really does make a difference. Like Ongaro right now, he has great support. Let's say he didn't have those people behind him in 2 years' time, and his results would suffer a bit. He could say, oh, if only I had better support, then I would do better, right? Do you see what I mean? Like, that's someone who could say that. But the people who typically say this are not in a position where if they had better support, they would do better. They wouldn't. They would do just the same.
Okay. I think I think my advice for a person who says that to me is two things. What type of support are you looking for? Are you looking? But it's such a I don't even know the word. It's such a question that I don't know where it comes from, because I understand that maybe some people feel they cannot talk to maybe some of these top drivers when they want and ask some questions about their setup like that. I mean, we try to do a good job with us because we're a small company, and a lot of people can get in contact with you. They can get in contact with me. Not that I'm a setup genius or anything, or Max, and they can directly talk to them. I think that's great support. I mean, we've been doing that for a while with people around the world, with Facebook and WhatsApp and whatnot. But I mean, it's difficult to say. I don't get it, man. I think this is my advice to people. If you think that because you get a better pricing, you're going to do better, that doesn't mean anything. You can get better. You can get better pricing. Doesn't mean you're going to get faster. If you think you're going to get this guy's secret setup that nobody else is running and it's going to make you faster, that's not going to make you faster either. The only thing I can say that will make you faster is actually going to the track, and you like to say this too, is to practice with a purpose and not just work on your good. This is a lot of people I find also focus on what they're good at and neglect what they're not good at. So if there's a jump on that track where you kind of have to scrub and whip it to get the best line, but you just don't worry about that. You said, I'll just drive right through it. But you can gain a couple of seconds, a tenth of a second there. But you just don't want to do it because you don't want to learn how to whip, or you don't want to put the time in to learn how to whip it. Or your braking points. Then that's the stuff you need to work on. If you can jump really good, but you can't take corners fast, then you should take it easy on jumping and get into getting some corner speed. I think that's the only way people will get faster, man. I like to say either burning nitro and burning tires, or burning lipos and burning tires is the only way you're going to get faster. What do you think?
I think when people say, if only I had more support, I would do better, it has to do with the fact that they think that if they got better pricing, then they would have more money to go racing.
I could see that.
But that could be true to some extent, but most of the time it's not. If you get a bit better discount and you save a couple of $100, you're just going to spend it on something else most of the time. If you really are that dedicated, then if you are so dedicated that it really comes down to having $200 extra and you can do so much more racing, then yes, the better support will help you. But those people are few and far between, I feel. Really, like, it's rare to find someone who's that devoted and dedicated to improving and practicing that it would make a difference.
Yeah.
Of course, if someone gets paid, so let's say you have a full-time job, don't have very much money to go racing, versus you get paid by a company to go racing and they pay all your travel. So now you can still have your job, but you also can go racing. Yeah, it's going to make a huge difference, but no one's just going to give that to you. You have to earn that. So you have to put in the work first, and then you have to deserve more help, more support. So people have it the wrong way. They feel like, if only I had support, I would do better. Instead of thinking, I will do better so that I can get support and then do even better after that. So they kind of want to skip to, I deserve support now, and then I'll do much better. So I think it's more of an attitude issue and the problem of feeling entitled to support, and if you don't get it, then you don't even bother trying because you don't have the support. So I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, I think
that's kind of the feeling. That's why I said that the people who tend to say this are not the kind of people who would actually benefit.
Yeah, I think yeah, man, you got to practice, man. You got to recognize what you're good at and not focus on that, and recognize what you're not good at as well, and understand that this industry, the RC racing right now, is like, I think a lot of people feel that there's so many guys out on these 100 deals and he's a pro and this and that, and it's not really like that. You know, there's people out there. There's been lots of people that have come through in RC in my time that have had a shit ton of talent, but they don't make it. Like, they don't make it to the big leagues, so they give up just as they're about to get through. That whole meme of the guy who's digging for diamonds and he's like 1 inch away, and then the other guy's like, you know, he's quitting and the other guy's coming behind him to find it. I think I understand that life happens a lot. A lot of these guys, when they get paid and whatnot, and you know, it's hard to do RC full time and be competitive and have a regular job. But there's guys out there that do it. And they put in the work. They go to the track. They practice. They burn tires. They burn nitro. They go through lipo packs, and then companies see that and they help these guys out more. And then these guys are also helping people at their local tracks, or you know, getting decent results at races. And you know, it's not just that easy. Like, give me a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a guy. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you said that the factories will see that and appreciate that in someone when they're putting in the effort, and that really is key. So when there are these young drivers who do put in the work, and you can see that they're improving, they are the ones who get the support because they deserve it. It's not the people who don't put in the work and say that they would do better if they had support.
And don't get me wrong, everybody should deserve support. And if that means if you have questions, you ask your local pro, you ask if you can ask your team manager, or, you know, even if you can ask the designer of the car, you should ask. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions. But, you know, I don't know. It's a catch-22. You gotta get, everybody deserves support, but which support are you talking about? You know, I don't know.
I'd like to say that at JQ Racing, at least, we give everyone enough to where they can make it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much information out there about the cars and about the setups, and they can, if they have a question, they can ask you, and you relay the question to me, or they ask me directly, or they speak to Max, or anyone really running JQ, and they will be helped. Whoever runs a JQ car can get help in solving their handling issues, or they just want to improve further from what they have. They can get the information. And also, if they do well in racing, they have the contingency program, so they can actually earn some money. They can, at the very least, make their money back that they spent racing that weekend. Like the entry fee, for example, they can get back. Or if they do better at the bigger race, they can get the entry fee plus the tires they use, or something like that. Like, it's not nothing. So I think the contingency plan and the support they get for setup and driving and racing and all that, I think that's already plenty. That's enough to get you onto a higher level of support.
Yes.
That's it. The tools are there for you to put in the work, to get results, to get noticed, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's my advice I would give any young talented person that feels they want to do this for a living, or they want to make it in RC, is like, you got to put in that hard work, and you got to make people like we say that people give out sponsorships like candy, but you got to make people notice you to get to that next level where you get that type of stuff. Like, I had a guy one time tell me, you should just give me a kit. And I was like, I just laughed at him. I was like, so if I give you a kit, what does that mean? Are you going to, I know it's about sales, but I said, if I give you a kit, does that mean you're going to sell me 15 cars in the next 3 months? Because we worked it out. Like, that's how much a kit, like if you give somebody a kit, we kind of need them to make 10 to 15 sales to make that of any value. So there you go. You want a kit, but you don't want no expectations for it. You don't want no, you want to give, but you don't want to have no, what's the word I'm looking for? Responsibility towards that, So I don't know. It's difficult, man. Things in life aren't free. And yeah, people think I'm crazy when I say my kit that I still run when I do drive, I paid for, so it is what it is.
Yeah, the original one.
Yeah. But I think that's my rant. Like, I think everybody deserves support. If you run any type of car or a particular engine or motor, the people that represent that brand, or they should support you with any problems or issues you have. If you want some help, you should feel free to contact them anytime. But I don't, like, at some point in time, you got to go out and do things on your own as well. So that's my rant for this weekend. It's nothing too special. It's just something that I hear a lot of in my daily conversations, not just with people period. And it was just a question I thought that would be good to talk about on this rant. With that said, we're going to conclude this podcast. Thank you for coming on, Joseph. Thank you to Jason Ruona for coming on. And we'll be at DNC next weekend. So it should be awesome. Joseph, you have anything to say?
Nah, I'm all out of words again.
All right. Well, you know what my saying is. Nitro is the glory, but E-Buggy pays the will. E-Buggy pays the will, yeah.
Yeah.
E-Buggy pays the bills. This is Lefty, and thank you guys for listening. Talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to the No Name RC podcast. Please tune in next time for more fresh RC content. And if you can, please also support us on patreon.com/The Quay Grain. We will greatly appreciate it. And don't forget, Nitro is the glory.